And I'm back after some serious technical difficulties.
Take two.
I've never had to restart a podcast just
the
because
effect I have on technology.
you're like an EMP that just destroys anything.
It's like, what am I going to do with all this? Implodes in itself.
I know. I just don't know what's going on. I used a website called Restream, and it basically takes my stream from my broadcasting software, and then it splits it into over to Facebook and YouTube, or multiple platforms. Usually you can only do it one at a time,
right?
And it just seems to be playing up on the Facebook side. It's not seeing my camera for some reason, so it's
probably something wrong with the algorithm.
Did you just
That's
make
my
that
go-to word when anything technology based.
Do you just stand like a burn a bunch of council workers like when they're in the hole and be like, it's probably the algorithm?
Probably definitely something wrong with the algorithm. There's a glitch in the algorithm. That's always the case.
So before we were rudely interrupted by algorithms, I was saying like this is your fourth time on. We figured out, yeah,
Fourth time, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We could call it the third. I can't listen back to the first one. We went over that the last time though, didn't we? It was.
Did you have a listen?
I listened to even when I listened to it back up straight away. I was like, oh my god. I was like, I don't know what it was. Some element of mania going on in my head, and I was still processing, very much so.
Well, you're pretty fresh off the back of coming from, Ecuador. You were. That was it, yeah.
But again, though, like as much as I say, it's I find it uncomfortable to listen to Robcast number 1, and that's the one that people really love. But that's why they're so valuable. Well, apparently for the people that enjoy them, but for me as well, because I can look at them and go, Christ, that's where I was at, and look where I'm at now. Or
you don't enjoy them?
I do. Well, I mean, I think if anyone is looking at themselves, expressing themselves 4 or 5 years ago, when you're at our age, or if you've gone through all that stuff I've gone through in the last 7 or 8 years, you're taking these massive shifts in your personality as you grow. And, I was sort of making sense of all these experiences I was having. And in order to do that, I was having to attach a lot of tools and spirituality and trying to make sense of all these different, philosophies and suggestive reasonings as to these experiences. And they were working for me. They worked, like valuably. But as I've sort of moved away from that, I've learnt to be a bit more rational, logical, but keep a hold of some of those things, even if I don't.
It can't mean
embrace them as a complete truth, like like talking about your depression as a demon, for example. I don't actually think it is one, but actually as a tool, I use that because it helps me detach from it. So,
and if you think of it as a demon, then you can sort of try and attack it appropriately as well, not an actual physical demon.
Yeah, I can sort of carry it with me and get on with my day, and there's a lot to be said, and I think room in the world for things that might not make sense to everyone, and especially when they're attached to things like mental health. It's not a plain sailing thing to navigate, so it sometimes takes out of the ordinary solution to handle it, and those types of language specifically is really helpful. Energy, vibration.
Do you feel it's been a sort of like become not a buzzword, but it's definitely something that's more on people's minds because they've experienced someone who's either died or committed suicide in their family, or there's a ton of famous people in the last however many months that have killed themselves due to depression. So everyone's thinking about it. It is a word, but it's almost a buzzword in a way, Oh,
definitely. I think you could go as far to say as well that even, the explosion of like self-harm's always been around, but there comes a point where I think it becomes so mainstream as well that there's definitely people that are harming for the reason that they're harming themselves, but also I think there's an element of, I know this is a thing. I'm going to try it, and with regards to depression, I think, I don't know, it's hard to find a separate word for someone struggling with the human experience and someone who's actually reached that chemical shift where it's going to take a hell of a work and they're actually dealing with that depression, essentially. And then there are two different things. One both you can maybe work your way out of, but I think it's thrown around quite loosely.
Yeah.
It's a get out. It's an easy way to embrace the victim.
Yeah.
And not in a, I don't mean that like in a dickish way, but you know, it's, yeah, I think so.
One of my former guests, Robert Simpson, is an old friend that I knew from Dundee, and he was just a bit reluctant to sort of, because there's so much talk about it. He says there's a difference between sort of mental health and mental well-being, and he thinks a lot of people are mistaking their mental health for just their well-being. You know, because there are people that are like, oh, I'm depressed, but on the whole of it, it's not. They're not that depressed. You know, someone as extreme as yourself that was, you know, feeling clinical. Well, would you call it clinical depression?
I would say so, yeah. And I was kind of bordered on drug-induced bipolar as well. Yeah, I mean, I wasn't giving my natural brain chemicals a hope in hell of self-regulating themselves. So I mean, I was diagnosed with bipolar and treated for bipolar with antipsychotic meds and all manners of things. But I was also taking drugs every day and just losing my shit. And you know, that effect on your brain, and it could be everlasting as well. Yeah, but I mean, someone like my father, like if you want, in his time of crisis when he was in hospital, so that to me, that was depression, like the actual, you know, in it, sealed up in it. That was his existence. You know? But yeah, that, what did your friend call it? The
mental well-being.
Yeah, and that's like, that's what, I think that's what we see. I think that's the human species, isn't it? And that's that kind of awakening now, is this, where it's like okay to talk about mindfulness now, is it? I think. Yeah, people aren't so scared off by it, like fucking incense hippie nonsense. It's making people are becoming more aware of the fact that, oh, I don't just have to listen to every word that comes into my head, and I don't actually need that pizza. I just want it, you know. And
everyone needs pizza. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yes, that's very true. I've had some of those recently.
I've never had a like, all pizza's good, obviously, but there's degrees.
I had to stay in Glasgow through work last week, which is quite an interesting story actually. But I was staying at a mate's on a couch all week. My mate Pete, an old firefighter.
Okay.
But he served me up pizza. Now I don't really eat bread because of my stomach and stuff, and I can't eat cheese, like wheat and cheese. I'm allergic to, annoyingly enough. But he served me up a pizza.
Oh,
and I
shit.
hadn't eaten a pizza, and so
wow.
God damn, it was good. It was just like a Tesco bought one, but I hadn't had one. I can't remember the last time.
I think that's the
Sweet
hardest.
Potato fries as well.
It'd be the hardest thing for me to give up is pizza. I don't have it all the time, but to say that I could never have pizza again would be very. That'd be terrible.
You'd be trouble you.
I would just give up. Whatever diet I'm on, I'm like, fuck that.
Huel brings out a pizza flavour.
Oh, right, okay,
That would be lovely.
Just to reel it back a wee bit, Laura, my girlfriend, her mother was always impressed with how openly some people would talk on the podcast about their depression, especially the men that have been on, obviously yourself, and there's been a couple other guys that have been on, and it is helped. It has affected them in their life where they've had to talk about it, or it would go wrong, and she was impressed with that because the age she is and the generation she's from, that wasn't something that was even from Canada, you know. It's not seen as like men talking about their feelings like that. It was the regular thing, and it kind of was like a shock to her to hear that, but she thought it was amazing to hear that from guys that I've spoke to.
You know, I think I've been thinking about this a lot recently, because I'm not digressing, but I'm just watching everything that's happening at the minute in the world, like all this sort of movement of free speech, like, you know, you're like Peterson and Eric and Burt Weinstein, and Sam Harris, and those when you're just listening to something, and I was thinking about that, like with regards to what you've just said, that openness, that truth, like my first Robcast, and just touching on something, and that's like all it is. It's just your truth, essentially, like straight from the heart, and you're being open and you're sharing your feelings and stuff, and it's like this. It just opens doors for people, and it's awesome. And it's like, I mean, I haven't had it happen recently, I suppose because I haven't been out as much, and I don't maybe not as obsessively talking about it as much, but I have had more, or maybe a handful of men come up to me in a pub, and they've seen my video. Maybe some of them know me, or some of them have, just seen the video, and they've gone out of their way to pull me aside to do nothing more than to talk to me.
Right. Okay.
But they don't want. They want to talk about themselves to me.
Right.
And out of that handful of men, at least 3 of them have just started crying.
Right. Okay.
And that happened to me, quite a few times, and that really spoke to me. Not like losing their crap, bawling, but just that. Like, I think if you can be bold enough and just go, guys, it's all right. Like, listen, how many... There's only so much suffering you can see, and there's only so many folk you can see. Someone desperate to end it or ending it. So it's like blurt out. And there's more things. There's a group, and there's a prison officer from Perth that has just started this sort of men's talk. I think, is it called men's talk?
Right. Okay.
But my friend sent me a link, and it was more. I think he was aiming at ex-prisoners and stuff, but really any man, and he just does like these workshops. It's really social from a point of view. They meet in local places like cafes and stuff, but he just leads the way.
Right. Okay.
So he's like, hey guys, so this is my story.
Has he been through something?
He's been through his own sort of darkness, and come back out the side, and obviously found this as his platform for his own healing, but encouraging guys to do it. And I think it's as simple as that, though. Like, where do you get that from men? Like, a men's therapy session is going to the pub, and trying to have a chat with your mates, or maybe you're now slowly emerging into these other.
I think it's probably it stems from men being reluctant to talk, and also the viewpoint of a bunch of men getting together. It seems like it's sort of patriarchal and sort of just like sort of a boys' club, I guess, but it's not, obviously not like that. But I guess there would be people that view it from the outside as, I don't know, not important maybe. But it's terribly important, men especially need that type of thing as outlets, or we know where it ends up. The statistics are terrible for men who commit suicide.
It's awful.
Very, very high, and it's obviously something that has to be dealt with, not dealt with, I don't know. There has to be something put in place, some sort of infrastructure that stops it before it gets to that point.
Do you think it's a generational thing that'll die out? Do you think like kids
Maybe.
that are now growing up, like?
I think we'll all become robots though, and then emotions will be, totally pointless.
Who needs emotions? Or you just get to pick which one you want for the next hour.
But could you feel it the most of all the
That's
most?
a Black Mirror episode there.
Is there? Yeah, like imagine if you want happiness, but it'd be like the most happiness that anyone could ever feel at that point. It'd be overwhelming. Yeah, and that's all you could feel. Like you could only feel the extreme or mid setting or low setting, I guess.
And then what if it malfunctioned to sad, but you've been happy consistently for like 7 days, and you just have a meltdown?
And how do you simulate those emotions? Yeah, like how do you know what happiness feels like? Maybe the real thing in the future will be that people are VRing for emotions,
like going to experiences to create that. Oh my goodness!
I think we just stepped off.
I wonder if we're in the right or the wrong side of history for that. You know what I mean? Like just when there's a turn, something massive is going to happen. Are we going to be like the rickety old granddads who are just watching the new generation enjoy all this stuff we fantasized and talked about on our podcast? And like, remind those old podcasts those old guys used to do.
I mean, it's
speaking at a microphone. I didn't even have an implant.
I mean, at the time, podcasts sounded like some sort of fancy, futuristic thing, but now it's just a staple of a lot of people's lives. Yeah. I feel like I've had a relationship with podcasts for a long time now. Yeah. But it doesn't seem that long either. I can't remember who. I think it was you and Sloan, mutual friend of ours, that introduced me to Joe Rogan's podcast. And I think someone had mentioned, I think maybe Ricky Gervais had one at that point. I'm not sure. And I wasn't really sure what they were. I was like, what the hell? What's a podcast? It sounds weird as well.
Yeah, the concept of it. It's
yeah.
like, what, do you mean radio?
And
Or-
they just talk.
Yeah.
It's either
Well, yeah,
it's not a
that's
newspaper.
That's not groundbreaking, by the way.
I can read a newspaper, thanks. And I don't have to do it for 2 hours either.
Yeah. It's been, and well, God, I mean, I think if I was to write a book, it would be something like "Podcast Saved My Life," or
Yeah.
you know, or the things I've done because of podcasts. Like,
And I
you
think
know, I'm
you'd
worried
be-
about what the next suggestion is. It costs me money. What have I got to buy this time? A steel mace, or am I going to Ecuador? What's that? What's the crack? Christ,
But-
looks like a bit intermittent fasting now.
do you know any podcast that you have to pay for? Have you ever
No,
paid
the only
for one?
podcasts I've ever paid for are Dan Carlin,
Yeah.
Hardcore History, and I'd happily pay for.
Well, I
yeah.
I bought my partner the Genghis Khan ones for Christmas.
Nice.
I put them on a USB for her
Yeah.
because she hadn't heard them yet, and
Yeah,
this is his epic
Yeah.
about Genghis.
When
Genghis
did
Khan.
anyone ever turn around after listening to Khan? What's it called?
Is it Genghis Khan? Genghis.
Yeah, but
Genghis.
so what does he call it?
Oh yeah,
Khan 1 and Khan 2.
Wrath of the Khans.
Wrath of the Khan. Yeah.
Which is brilliant.
Yeah.
name.
I put Richard, the sports therapist guy, onto it, and he was loving it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's an insane series of podcasts.
Oh, you
I
feel
think
smarter after it. You're like, I'm definitely just took a step up in my IQ thanks to Dan Carlin.
but you've
Did you know this, by the way?
but you've worked for it though. Like you've
Yeah.
trounced through every single step of what Genghis has done, and you feel emotionally sort of battered after it.
I love
Because
what
there
he
was some moments where Laura had to like take a step back when they were talking about kids and whatever, and she was like, "This is just a bit too much." But she was like, "Nah, I have to listen to it because that's what history is. You know, these are the things that we know."
He doesn't just say, so this happened and then this happened. He's really big on painting a picture of like, imagine what these people were like from the age of 4. They were on horseback without a saddle, with a bow and arrow in his hand. And then you're like, yeah, imagine with their muscles. And, and then he's talking about them hanging upside down on a horse and firing their arrows. And you're like, oh, wow.
Drinking horse milk and
That's
blood.
Sorry.
Horse piss, probably.
Completely digress. I just thought of something that Joe Rogan has said on a number of occasions.
Right, okay.
Right, and it's he compares a modern UFC fighter, like Premier League top dog,
Top 10.
to like say a Spartan warrior.
Okay.
And in his opinion, a modern martial artist would destroy like a Spartan warrior. And his argument is obviously because of the evolution of martial arts.
Yeah.
I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure. Like, we're talking a war baby, like killing from the age of, like, that's what they've, no fear of death, like battle hardened, you know, okay, maybe not the same.
And how much of that is propaganda, though? You know, like how much were they?
No, it's all real.
It's real to me, goddammit.
Of the Spartan war. But, okay, we'll say that was the instance. So, well, I mean, I don't.
But they still come from a generation where you have to be pretty hardy. If you're in a battalion or whatever, you're in the army back then, you're still going to have a level of toughness.
Yeah. I don't mean like a Roman private soldier or something. I mean like, you know, what good like a Spartan warrior. Trying to be original now or something, but
it's tough because the movements that the people that do MMA that they've been exposed to are completely different from what Spartan warriors were probably used to. Like, you know, when you just see something, you're just like, how the hell did he do that?
Yeah.
And it'd be the same with if they fought. I mean, if it was unarmed, obviously, I think if it was armed, most of the time, I think Spartans would win if it was armed.
Yeah.
Because you're not trying to use a knife or anything in MMA, just your knife hands.
That's disappointing. That would be awesome.
But I think the MMA dude, depends who it was though. You know, there's a bunch of people, but
okay.
Yeah, I just thought that would be a no-brainer thinking about it. But when I think about it, it'd probably be.
I just don't think it's that simple.
Yeah.
Not that cut off. I'd like to see a computer simulation.
Imagine doing an armbar to someone. You know what an armbar is. Imagine seeing that. Imagine being a Spartan warrior, and from what we assumed that they weren't exposed to that. Imagine seeing that for the first time and being like, "What is that guy doing to me?"
Nifty trick.
Yeah.
And then they're going back in time to do that, and then they start doing that, and the armbar takes on an evolution of itself, and then by the time it gets to the 21st century, it's like we don't have elbows anymore.
If you could armbar anyone in history, who would it be?
Best question ever. Oh man, I don't want to be cliche. Like it's just things like Hitler are coming in my head and stuff. Like, okay, someone in history.
He'd be a little wuss though. He's like no sunlight. He's probably cooped up, taking loads of drugs. He'd be wiry as well.
He'd be wiry, yeah. Anyone in history. Oh my goodness, Darren. I don't know. Stalin was a bit of an evil bastard, wasn't he?
It doesn't have to be a bad guy.
What was the like evil scientist guy? Hitler's sidekick. Like he was awful. The guy that used to like do operations on.
Oh, the ones that experiment on twins as well.
And then then the Americans, did they not take him in as a rocket scientist or something?
You're thinking of not
Hiram Hitler or
evil.
Just repronounce the word Hitler. I've got more beer.
We all do.
Oh, we've got loads of beer.
I'm googling evil Nazi scientist. Yeah. So come on, who would you armbar?
From history.
Top 3.
Margaret Thatcher.
Oh.
I'd like to put her in an armbar. I don't like her very much.
I'd probably do like a wrestling move on her. It doesn't have to be anyone you despise. Just be like, you know, when everyone likes someone and you're like, that guy's a cunt. Like, I just know it. But he's still a nice guy. But he's just like too nice. And you're like, I still hate this guy.
Yeah.
Could be someone like that. Probably Leonidas. He was probably a complete knob.
Leonidas.
Okay, Dr. Joseph Mengele injected dye into the eyes of children to see if they could permanently change their colour. Wow.
He was a nasty character, that guy. Yeah, he pops up a lot in a lot of the books I've been reading. Man's Search for Meaning and stuff.
Right, okay.
I would definitely like to armbar him.
The guy that did all the crazy experiments on
but like in a way where he's got one of those injections in his hand and so slowly put it into his neck.
You're talking about like some sort of
armbar.
Early 90s buddy cop movie where you get complete revenge on someone.
Yeah. Really slowly so as you can see it.
Oh, are you wearing a Mel Gibson wig while you're at it?
Don't struggle, you'll only make it worse.
I'd probably armbar Mel Gibson.
Mel Gibson?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know, he looks pretty buff right now. He's pretty. He's on that.
There's a difference between looking buff and fucking crazy.
Yeah. He's a bit of both.
Yeah. No, okay. Yeah. But I think he's just buff because of all the alcohol.
He looks better now than he does when he was younger.
I think there was a point where that was probably true, but I think it's maybe
so much now.
I don't know. I've not seen. Yeah. I think he was one of the first people that I saw in a movie, Braveheart, and I was like, oh, he's like older, but he's not like looking bad. I think he was like 40 something. And I was like, he's ancient, but he looks alright.
He did, yeah. He looked alright.
Yeah.
He probably would have been. 1995. Had the poster on my wall.
Did you?
I had the video cassette and watched it so many times that I had to get another one. Like, I actually remember when it stopped working.
They should probably, anyone who wants to come into Scotland as an immigrant or a migrant has to be able to like quote Braveheart at any point and answer, like, there will be a test on it. That's all you have to do to get into Scotland.
The amount of folk that did that to me when I was in my travels, specifically Americans, who all told me they were Scottish or Irish. And I had one guy narrate Braveheart to me as in fact, tell me his relationship to it and his family heritage.
Was it William Wallace, and were you on ayahuasca?
Yes. Not at the exact time during this conversation, but I did say to the guy, at what point do you become American? Do you know what I mean? There's a lot of that attachment.
Yeah.
You know, in America when you speak to people from
the same with Canada as well, because there was a huge percentage of the Scottish population that left for Canada. Same with Australia, same with America at some points. My dad was one of the ones that was supposed to go. My granddad bought a ticket for £10 to go to Australia, like when they were really young, but they decided not to go. But they had the ticket. Right. £10 for a ticket.
That's insane.
Right. And well, probably it was like £1 billion at the time. But
could have bought a house.
And when I stayed in Toronto, everyone you meet was like, oh, I have Scottish relatives. And I was like, well, I know, everyone's pretty much Scottish here. Yeah, and they kept asking me like strange questions as well, but that's just the way it is.
Regarding their ancestral
Yeah, just like, oh, things to do with the kilt, and
Right.
do you eat dried cow's blood? I'm like, yes, of course, directly from the
Don't
cow.
even dry it. Just drink it in the morning.
It's just like the Mongols and horses.
The
That
best
sounds
I ever
really
had.
weird when you say that, though.
It does.
Mongol.
Yeah. Mongol.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now it does. Yeah. Mongol.
Where did that become a bad thing? Like, where did it come? Where did it go from the Mongols being fucking pretty badass, and then it to mean someone who's, who has a retardation?
I feel like you should ask Google that question because whatever comes out in my mouth, because I've got a warped idea in my. I thought, is there not a direct link to the use of that word with regards to appearances of the? I'm not going to say the rest, in case I'm wrong.
I'll quickly Google it. I'll put I always feel fancy when I put etymology for a word.
Etymology.
That's
Put etymology algorithm.
So yes. Oh, you were right. Dr. John Langdon Down, who discovered Down syndromes. How did he discover Down syndrome?
Yeah.
In the 1860s, used Mongolism and Mongoloid to describe the syndrome, as he stated that there were similar physical characteristics
To the Mongols.
of people with Down syndrome to the people from Mongolia and the Mongoloid race.
That's how triggered people have become. Like, I was reasonably sure that was the reason, but was too scared to say it because it sounded like you couldn't say that out loud. You couldn't do that now. Like, if we just discovered Down syndrome, they look like people from Mongolia. We'll call them Mongols.
Mongoloids.
Like Mongoloid.
That's so weird.
Oh my goodness.
There's some
That's
things
a better time then when people could say what they wanted, Darren.
There's some things that I will still say. Like, I don't feel bad about saying, like, calling someone a retard. That to me, that doesn't really. I'm not meaning it because they're an actual a person of disability. I'm just saying it because
Scottish people are kind of unique in that way, though, that we will refer to each other as "all right, you cunt," or something like that.
Like, we can use "cunt" the same as "fuck."
Yes,
it's like
exactly.
describes all sorts of things.
Mm-hmm.
But there's people in America or North America that's probably going to be like, "Oh, that's such a terrible word."
It's really horrible to his friends. Why does he speak like that?
But it is such a. I don't know. There is something about that word that sort of brings something in you.
I suppose it's one of those things that I don't know. I mean, it's not a nice.
I mean, cutting.
It's not
Mongoloid.
Right. Okay. Retard. Retard. I know it's an aggressive word, isn't it? But it's just that balance of humour or not. Or I suppose what your situation
context. You know.
Well, did you not? You know the guy from Scrubs.
Yeah.
Dr. Cox.
Yeah.
Perry, is it?
Perry.
No, that was his name. I don't know what his name is, but
Perry was his name, was it not?
Yeah, I mean on the actor's name. Perry Cox was his
the character.
But he was on Fighter and the Kid.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
It was totally random, but he was specifically on to talk about the use of the word retard because his son has Down syndrome.
And he's an actual doctor.
He's a big advocate for.
He was playing himself all these years.
I loved Dr. Cox. I was
the best.
Scrubs was amazing. I loved it.
He'd always whistle.
It could give you that. It could make you laugh. It could make you cry. Okay. You didn't know where you were going.
He was the only
Scrubs.
thing I liked about it, though. Yeah. It got really shit. Everyone started to wear makeup towards the end. Like, what's her name?
I don't know. They had
the blonde girl. She was always wearing. She got more and more makeup every season.
I just rewatched Scrubs. It was DOS. It was so good. DOS. But yeah, and he was on, and his entire reason for being on their podcast was the use of the word retard,
right? Okay.
And so he was obviously speaking to comics because what's his name is doing stand up now as well,
Brendan
and
Shaw.
their use of it, and I guess they were just openly.
That's fine.
Actually, that was a reminder. It doesn't even switch off if I do the thing. But yeah, and he was just with their sort of take on it. Well, yeah, but it's based on human. He's like, yeah, but it also has this
So what was his sort of stance on it?
Stop using it completely.
Really?
Disregard the word. Get rid of it.
Retard.
Yeah.
Sorry, I said it all fancy.
Well, I guess there's people with Down syndrome that exist. It has that attachment to them. Yes, we can use it in a humorous, and yes, well, it just means this. But
should the cutoff point be though that if you're retarded and you understand the meaning of that word, then that'll be like. That should gauge it, if you know what I mean. Like if you're
so if you call me it and I'm not
get
phased because I
you
don't
get it, then you are retarded.
Like, you deserved that.
Yeah.
Therefore, every time I see you, retard.
If you then get offended by it, then you're not retarded because you understand the capacity of it. You know.
Yeah, I see where you're going with that. Yeah. Okay.
I'm just kidding around. You know. I'm just
He's not.
I call him retard all the way up here.
It's certainly not something that offends me. I think I'm definitely a bit more conscious and frustratedly so though of what you can and can't say. We're going a bit mental with that space right now.
I was thinking about this. I'm thinking about this during the week actually, in regards to growing up and acting when people are calling you names and how you react to it when you're growing up, because obviously high school and primary school is quite a tough time for that, because that's when you're at your most sort of like, what do you mean, like there's something wrong with me? But usually it makes no sense what they're calling you or whatever any kid's cottoned onto in your life, and they're just calling you by it. It usually has no basis. It's just random sometimes. But still, like I remember being on the bus going to high school, some girl that I had a bit of problem with because she would always like I think I was in first year and she was in fourth year, and she'd always like just well on me, like, you know, on the bus, like she was constantly trying to hit me, and I don't know why, like I never ever like gave her any bother, but she was just on the bus home. That was when she would start like try to like retaliate for something, you know, against someone on me, you know. And she was like, she kept calling me slug lips, and I was like, what? Like, you know, you're so vulnerable at that age, and you're like, what do you mean slug lips? Like, as I was thinking about it this week, I was looking in the mirror and I was like, how can you even get that from looking at my face? Like, she just pulled it out the ether. That's all it was. But when you're that age, you're like, oh, maybe everyone thinks this about me, you know, and they just don't tell me or whatever. And your mind's like your most powerful enemy at times.
Absolutely. So words are harmful. Is that the?
But I grew up. I don't know why, but when I've grown up where there's nothing anyone can say to me that phases me, you know.
I think the most damage I ever suffered was my own inner monologue, as opposed to anything that anyone said to me.
But that's true, you know.
Even that comes down to the use of language, doesn't it? Like when you start adjusting the language in your head, even if it's just a matter of changing one word for another word, or
but the defense mechanism that I gained from that when I was young was strike first. So I will make a joke about something about my body part first.
So you learned to do roundhouse kicks and you destroyed that girl the next time you just go slug lips.
No, she actually tried to hit me, and I kind of she was on the bus.
Wheel kick.
I grabbed.
Back.
She tried to kick me. I grabbed her leg and put it over her head. Like I didn't hit her. I just was like.
Welcome to yoga, bitch.
But true. You know, you obviously can't do a double lotus. But the defense mechanism I learned from that was
violence.
Was severe,
such a good person.
Unadulterated violence. Was to make jokes about myself first, and then it dilutes the situation just so well. Like no one, if someone's calling you something but you say it first before they get a chance, they don't pick up on it ever. You know, and maybe it is a genuine sort of fear that you have, or you feel like it's an inadequacy in your whatever, in your makeup or whatever, and if you say it first, then it's not something they catch on to. And I always did that. I was like, oh, you know, I always felt like my nose was big, or my lips. Obviously, that girl thought my lips were big.
Slugs.
So I would say that in conversation to sort of be joking, or my chin, that was the one.
Yeah.
Like my last name is Kinloch,
Yeah.
and people would call me Chinloch
Chinloch.
because I have like a strong chin.
Yeah.
But at the time,
You do
I
have a
would
very
just
strong chin.
I would make fun of myself first,
Yeah.
and it totally diluted the situation.
I mean, kudos to you or your parent. I mean, what age are you talking? Like from a young age, you were able to have that coping mechanism. Like,
I remember, no, it came through after high school when I got to college, and I was like, these are adults still doing this type of thing. Well, what you'd consider as adults, and I was like, I'm going to have to get around this. It's obviously something that will happen later on in life as well. You know, imagine myself being 50, people still.
right.
It's just the way guys work, you know. That's how you make a bond, is by ribbing on people, you know, like calling them names,
Yeah.
or just making, that's how you form a tight bond. And I think I realised that at that age. So I was like, I think 17's when I started to notice that I could just do that and not feel bad about myself. Like, I'd make everyone laugh and no one would then try and make fun of you.
Yeah.
But up until that point, I was always like very...
Were you quite? I'm just curious. So I mean, because I was a sensitive child. Like I was overly sensitive.
Yeah, I was super...
Were you?
Yeah, super sensitive.
Were you in good? What was your? Were you a genetically gifted child, or were you overweight? Or I was a chubby kid.
Oh, I was ripped as a 3-year-old.
Yeah.
There's pictures of me in the bath as a 3-year-old, and I've got like a 6-pack. I don't know why I have a picture of myself in the bath, but
everyone's got a picture of themselves in the bath, usually with abundance of other children as well.
The water looks
communal bathing.
Because it's those old
Bring
cameras.
your kids round or save the bath water.
Why did we always bath naked with everyone? Well, not everyone, all the kids at that point.
Let's get naked and wash. We didn't wash. We just played in the bath. Are you clean? No, we pissed in here.
Yeah, because it was an old camera, the water just looks like it's filth, but it's not. It's just
this soap scum running around the bath.
This is another thing that I was thinking about, because I never really tapped into my athletic abilities in high school because of what I went through maybe in first year and second year. Coming from a small primary school, there was 35 people in my whole primary school.
Yeah.
It was a small village. There was 4 other girls in my primary 7 class when we left. So it was just me. You know, I was the big guy on campus for that whole school.
Yeah.
You know, and I was always amazing at sports. My dad was really super athletic. He'd done a lot of half marathons and run track at high school. You know, he did really well. And I never really noticed it. I just thought everyone was like that, sort of athletic and could do things. And I grew up doing karate, and that was something an avenue for that. But when I realized that it was kind of bullshit, and then I went to high school and realized I wasn't as special athletically, because there was a bunch of kids there that were better than me. And going from that situation to a massive high school with, I think there's 1,500 people at Blairgowrie High School. And I think I thought, well, if I can't do it, then why do it at all with the athletics? So I kind of skipped out on that. Even though I love gymnastics, I never really got to do it because of the classes were sort of an odd time with my parents being able to take me there and with their work. So that was something I missed out on. And it wasn't until I went to America I started to realise that I did have an immense athletic ability, you know.
When I first met you, that you were just 100% athlete.
Yeah.
Completely and utterly shredded and on the ball in that game. That was quite something. That was impressive.
Yeah, but I think...
Did you learn to fight for any reason other than... Did it have anything to do with these coping mechanisms? Or did the sort of coping I'll just take the mick out of myself, then go into,
Maybe.
I would like to be able to know how to kick your arse? Or
I'd seen videos of UFC, early UFC, so I knew it existed up until that point. I didn't really know it was starting to explode the way it did, because it took off after Forrest Griffin and Stephen Bonner had that fight.
Slugfest. Yeah.
And I think that was 2000, maybe 2000 something. So I was 2003 is when I went to America, played football, did really well at American football. Came back, did a little bit at the gym. That's when I started to get into the gym. And up until that point, I was a complete fussy eater. Like I just wouldn't eat anything.
Right.
Like if it was no vegetables, I didn't even really like meat either, so it would have to be just like potato waffles, beans, that kind of stuff. Like just nothing that was
Healthy,
good for you.
super nutritional stuff.
And super noodles was the worst for you. And then
super noodles.
I forced myself to eat more stuff because I was going to the gym.
Yeah.
I hated it, but I forced myself, because I just had laser focus to be more buff at that point, but I wasn't. And then I was like, I need something more of an athletic avenue for this. Like I wasn't just happy doing the weights. I wanted something that was going to challenge me and keep me fit as well. Yeah. And then my friend told me just around when I was 19, 20 that he was going along to this class, but it was full. Yeah. So I was like, ugh. So, and then I heard about it a couple of years later.
Right.
So I was 22 when I first went, I think.
Is that to MMA? To what?
My first class at MMA.
Was it really? How old are you now?
31.
Right, okay.
Right. I think it was 23 when I first started properly.
Right.
It was a friend that took me along when I was living in Dundee. He had the classes going at the university. My head coach Billy. Yeah. And I was like, I love this. It was better than karate at that point because it felt like it felt more natural. It didn't feel like obviously katas. Like there's no katas in MMA. Because it's just a bunch of nonsense. Uh-huh. And yeah, so I just to cut a long story short, I just did it at fitness initially, and then I just decided that I'm doing pretty well at this and I'm advancing. And then because of my certain natural curiosity, I used YouTube as an invaluable tool to sort of get better. Even though I was learning in class, I was constantly just going. When I got back from class, I would just go on YouTube and learn how to counter a move that someone got me with. Yeah. Like if we got taught and I kept getting caught in something, I would just go home, YouTube it, and then in my mind, because I'm a great overthinker, and
welcome to the club.
But what comes with that is visualizing. Yeah. And with visualizing comes the ability to perform things straight away when you do something. Yeah, so I would visualize moves in my head that I'd learned, sort of maybe a rebuttal to whatever someone had did to me in class. Yeah. So went home, watched the YouTube video, and then by the time I got to class, I had visualized that move enough to be able to perform it at least, somewhat properly when I got to class.
It's a really powerful tool. Mm-hmm. I used to, I do say to myself is, if I can clearly see it in my head, I can do it.
Yeah.
Sorry, I can't.
No, that's.
But like perfect example was that. I think the last time I was here, I was telling you I'd managed to pull off a muscle up.
Yeah.
And that was off the back of the ultramarathon and going through an experience that was seemingly not possible or seemed impossible at some point in my life. I mean, that's a really powerful shift in your brain when you do something like that.
Did you do a lot of visualizing for the marathon?
Yeah,
leading up to it?
Yeah, like specifically, actually, finishing it, but more like a visualization on more like a meditation on the feeling of that, like just trying to.
The pace and the
like just trying to, because I knew where I needed to get my pace at and my body at and my mind at. I know there's a point where it just gets to almost sort of robotic. Yeah. And I'd been there enough times to just try and tell myself, I think I can do that if I get to this. Mm-hmm. And once I found it, I can just carry on. But yeah, when I remember, like I said to you, I'd walked into the gym and I'd done that muscle up, but it was just this, it was like I could see it.
Yeah.
Like I was like, oh, this is how you do it. And it was just to the bar and up. Like, and I videoed it and it was a really effortless muscle up.
I saw it on Instagram,
Yeah, that'll do. Okay. But,
I wonder.
No big deal.
I mean, the first Matrix movie was fantastic, and they showed us, when he was learning all these different karate styles and kung fu styles when he was in the Matrix.
Jiu-jitsu. Yeah.
And at the time, obviously, you think, oh, this is great, that could happen. But when you start to know about muscle memory and where it comes from through repetition by actually doing something, then you think, well, that wouldn't work because you wouldn't be able to have that. But if you have some sort of base level of I don't even know how to put it into words, but just muscle and athletic ability, I think if you can visualize it, you're able to do it.
Do you know what I always think of? Like a simple sort of thought experiment or like example. You know, like when you, because I've done it. You know, when you leap over a gate or a fence, so you put your hand down and you throw your body over. And when I was younger, because I used to walk my dog in the backwoods in Scone, and there was always a gate. There was a what do you call them, a sty?
Yeah,
that
the
you
thing
could
that
go
goes
over,
from
but my dog would usually go thump under, and I'd usually jump over. But my dog lived to be 16 and a half, and I was getting older and not quite as flexible and stuff. And as the years went on, there was one occasion I went to jump, but like a millisecond of hesitation in my brain, but I was already in the motion, and I ended myself.
Really?
I didn't even get one foot over.
No
I
way.
caught both foot,
Shit.
but my hand slipped off the fence, and I saw it, and it went clunk on my ribbon, and I fell down on my back, and it was all just that second of doubt in my head, and that just came down to.
Do you think age can be a mentality then as well?
A mentality.
A mentality.
Yeah, I think so as well.
When you think you're getting too old to be doing something or that your age is setting in where it might not be, but you've just convinced yourself of that.
Yeah. After, I don't know, so I'm just mentioning it again, but that, like that. Okay, so I think endurance is something that you have to earn. I think, like that comes with age because it's very.
But there's people that have, like you did 55 miles, and what was the furthest you did up until that point? Like,
well, 30, and that was a straight.
Yeah,
blew my knee out. Yeah, but that's my point. Is that sort of. So I wasn't an old man. I was 37 when I done. I was 36 when I done it, but. Once you've done something like that and you realise how powerful just the positioning of the goalposts are.
Yeah.
You know, when you years ago, well, no, actually, that is doable. So what else is doable?
Yeah.
And then when I walk into the gym and I do this muscle up that I've been trying to do for months, and I'm just stuck in my head with it. That's all that it was, you know. So, that, I think that comes down to just... I mean, I've got... I won't name him out loud, but I have several friends, but one friend specifically... And he wrote himself off in his mid-30s.
Wow.
Like, oh, I'm old. And now he looks old as hell, you know, and he's like justified his own self-belief or disbelief in himself to provide his body with the crap he needs to be as old as he thinks he is and write himself off at a very early age, you know. I mean, my plan is to be fitter next year than this year and the same. Like, seriously, like...
How are you going to do that?
Just keep...
Fight bears.
I've done that. I think...
Can we pause on that 2 seconds?
Darren needs a piss break.
No.
No?
No.
Shit break.
Oh, shit. I'm going for a break.
He's got a third. functions.
It's all right. I do it a lot. Anyway, do you not see my Instagram stories?
Yeah, that's why I thought I'd blurt it out for you. I thought you were just going to...
Yeah, so you were saying... I don't even know what you were saying.
Rewind. Yeah, I think we were just talking about visualization.
You were talking about your muscle up.
Doing yourself
Yeah.
so old, yeah. I think it gets easier. I was wanting to ask you what you were up to, actually, but I think with regards to how do you keep fitter as you go on, I look at myself like when I first met you and when I was with Rory and when I first started training with Rory. So I suppose looking at the effort and hours I was putting in, I should have been and should have felt the fittest I had ever felt.
Right.
But I remember saying to Rory, like, at one point, for as much as we train and as hard as we train,
Yeah.
I just always feel tired and like exhausted. But a lot of that was to do with not being informed.
Yeah.
Overtraining, which apparently isn't a thing if you're Tim Kennedy. Apparently his psychology will tell you that's bullshit.
Steroids a hell of a drug.
It's clean, man. It's clean.
Oh yeah, okay.
I just want to believe you can be that size and my height and not have to take steroids. Like that's like what an animal. So you like.
I know what you're saying.
So me personally, like I just train more sensibly now. Like I feel like I've got like a go-to understanding between my brain and my body now.
Yeah.
So like I know like how to approach our exercise better. I also have gravitated towards my strengths more, and I'm not, because before I was enjoying training with you guys and stuff, but I needed to find my own passion and like what I'm good at. Like, since
I think you like training with us because of the kind of, it was almost there was a lot of cross training that we were doing, not CrossFit, but cross training.
The physicality as well. Like I sort of toyed with this with like jiu-jitsu for quite a while. Like sort of, I feel a bit down on myself for not going with it, but I sort of come to accept now that you started it. It's such wildly. It's so widely spoken. Widely spoken. What did I say? Right.
What we said, wildly.
Yeah.
Could be, either or.
It's spoken about, a lot, and it's obviously over all the podcasts and stuff. And like I think I was desperately hoping it would be something that I could just absolutely
like
love.
cling on to.
Yeah, cling on, and I do enjoy it, but that the desire to sort of do like go back and in the YouTube and stuff like that.
But I don't know if that was tied into my age at the time. I don't know if I still find myself doing that now. A couple of months ago, I did some arm wrestling training at my local gym. The guy that trains out there and coaches is a UK world arm wrestling. UK world?
We're both good at really talking on the podcast.
He's a UK arm wrestling champion.
Awesome, cool.
And
it's terrifying when you've I've had some arm wrestles with just terrifyingly strong people. Like.
And I felt that thing coming back where I did, like, I have a natural strength to me through years of manual work. So I have a foundation there, and then obviously MMA as well that's added on top of that, so I know how to move. But even after that first session, I found myself like getting that obsession again. Like I just was like Googling everything to do with that arm wrestling, and I was like, I can't just throw my attention at random things like that. I had to reel it back in, and I felt a lot of pain in my arms for a couple of weeks after that because of the. I've been training so much recently in terms of strength, and I'm trying to bulk up as well, that I think my tendons had not really been putting any pressure at that point with my newfound strength and muscle. So when I was doing that, because it's an awkward angle, you're using a lot of tendon strength, and I think my muscles were just a lot stronger than my tendons at that point, and I felt pain for weeks in my tendons. Like I had tendonitis badly.
A hell of a awkward, unnatural
time
plane
of motion. And yeah, like just for weeks, even when I was at work, when I was like using the shovel, I could just feel the pain coming back just from light work. And I
You
was
need
like,
my steel mace.
is that a euphemism?
Shovel.
And I just like, I can't direct my focus at something like that. That it's not something that I really want to do. I just get obsessed with things that come up in my life, and then I go down a random path.
Yeah.
And it's not really truly what I want to do, but because I'm like so interested in life and what it brings, I get obsessed with like just random stuff like that. And even though it might not be my passion, it's like a video game. When you do A, B, and C, you get D, and that's what it feels like when you do something like arm wrestling or MMA. But I was very passionate about MMA, but just I was like, I had to catch myself, like be like, oh, I can't go down this path because I'll just lose another 5 years at trying to perfect being an arm wrestler.
Did you feel a natural ability at it? Were you surprised at your like? If you've been up against, did you try out on this dude?
Well, he was like, do you want to come to the class? Because I was just doing a bit of strength stuff when I was there. He's a nice guy. I might have him on actually, even though he doesn't know about it at this point. But he's a natural bodybuilding champion and arm wrestling champion, the UK one, and he's built up his business, and he's good. He's like really friendly guy. I assume he's Polish. I think he's or somewhere along those lines, and he's got a great business head on him, but he's able to create a community as well based around it, as opposed to it just being about business. So yeah, I want to have him on, but I did find like, I mean, I beat him a couple of times when he was like, oh, come try this, and I wonder whether he was just trying to do that to get me to come to the class, but I just have, I don't know, like have a weird.
How do you do? Is it like? So I've had a couple of times in my.
Are we going to arm wrestle right now?
I feel nervous now that you've been wrestling world champions, but
UK world champion,
UK Universal champion,
University Challenge,
on the West Coast specifically, East Coast. Where are we? East. I've in my adult life encountered, like, I can think of two. Like being in my early 20s with a group of mates and in a pub somewhere in Perth, and this old man challenging us to arm wrestles, unbeknown to us. Yeah, there's a reason an old man challenges some young healthy dudes to arm wrestle, and this dude had strength like, it was like, what, you couldn't even comprehend it in your head. Yeah, like the strength in this man's arm, you were not budging him. And another time was back sort of in 2013 time when I was at a party, and this dude came in and he was confidently asking every dude in the place to arm wrestle.
That's so weird.
Did not look imposing or physically capable in any way.
Sounds like an arm wrestler.
And I was like, well, okay, if anything, to shut the guy up.
Playing to your ego, I guess.
And I couldn't even move him. But I remember thinking, there was something very specific about his technique, and he was just felt like he was locked. Like there was
there's nothing you can do.
Yeah,
it's a strange feeling.
It's very humbling.
I think if you do like a few sessions doing the training, like you could probably go into any pub and club and beat anyone at it. Because the technique prevails all the time. Yeah. If you have a foundation of strength, of course, then you can do that.
Where are you strongest at? What would you say your strongest athletic ability? Like, I mean, what am I thinking of? Like,
it comes
fast,
from,
you're quite fast, aren't you? Yeah.
I'm explosive.
Boingy.
My conditioning.
Springy conditioning.
Because I work hard.
Yeah.
People always find it weird that I like to enjoy myself when I go out. Back in the day, I would have a couple of cigarettes, and people would be like, oh, that's going to be terrible for MMA and whatever. And I was like, I'm just enjoying myself. Obviously not while I'm training for a fight, obviously. Yeah. But my conditioning was always great. That was something I always panicked about. I overthought it. And I would always overthink myself into great conditioning because I never wanted to be tired in a fight. That would be the worst thing to do. My technique as well. I think
You're methodical in your
Yeah.
yeah.
And
I've watched your fights,
yeah.
and I was like, I mean, I haven't watched one, but I remember the first time because I knew you were good, but I'd never seen your stand up.
Yeah.
I was like, dude can move, like you know, I
Yeah.
didn't feel like I was just watching a fight. It
Yeah.
wasn't, you know, you can watch some. You know, there's a couple of, I don't know, thinking of amateur kickboxing things, and they just seem to be, I don't know what they are, but I mean, I couldn't do any better, don't get me wrong, but from an entertaining point, or you're not thinking, oh, I'm looking at a couple of legit athletes.
Yeah.
But that was, man, that was like,
I think my weakness though was my mindset at the fight.
Yeah.
You know, I've spoke about it a little bit, and I've tried to get this out of people that I've had on that have fought in the UFC, how they've gained. There's Chris Bungard, who's a local fighter, and he's on his way to the UFC. You know, he just won the fourth title in Scotland, and he seems to have just gained this mindset where nothing's going to shove him off, regardless of whether he's got the best conditioning or the best technique or whatever. It doesn't matter. You know, he's great though, but he's just got this mindset that's sort of impenetrable to any doubt, you know. And I admire that in someone,
including his own.
Yeah. And I admire that, and he's gotten to that point where it's just going to be so hard for anyone to take him off that pedestal. And I think it comes from me being my own worst enemy when I was training. You know, like I would train all the right things, do all the right things, eat all the right things, weigh in like an absolute pro, and then I defeat myself in the fight mentally, you know.
I like, for how many fights have you had?
I think I had like 6 or 7.
I don't know which fight. Wow, I wish I could remember the name of it. I'm thinking of one fight
because I lost
with you, and you were like, I mean, you guys were like toe to toe, like, and then I can't remember. Did you get submitted or something?
Yeah, I got like arm bars.
Up until that point, it didn't look like that was necessarily going. So what's happening in your head? And is that is that not giving up, or is it you've defeated yourself? And
I'm not sure. Like I don't know. I think it gets more intense with each fight, and I think because I left too long in between each fight, I should have went back straight to the gym and then had another fight and got used to fighting. You know, that was the alien part to me, was the actual fight, and having that mentality to actually try and, you know, harm this person, as opposed to exchanging technique. You know, that was the thing that I had to get used to, and I kept leaving time between the fights, so I couldn't run on that momentum with my mentality, and I think it didn't get to where I wanted to.
It's quite a conflict, isn't it? Like, I mean, I do not for a second trying to put myself in any comparison to your own experiences, but
it's all relative.
But when I've toyed like at the Railway Club for a couple of years, and I've sparred like quite a bit in a ring, and I found a conflict of my own personality in there. Like, I would see myself throwing a punch, but not really. And I don't know if it was a mixture of, I'm not really pissed off at this person. or also, if I really punch him, he'll really punch me. But like, you know, all these things were going on. But I remember having a shift because there was a guy in there, like the way that it would work, you know, like you would do your circuits and stuff, and then you'd get a bit of sparring, and then it was really sort of hit or miss who you'd go in with. And there were some guys that like I dreaded the day that I would end up, and there was a Polish guy that used to train there, and I mean, he was so far above everyone else, but he was merciless in that ring, even sparring, and like and inevitably, so I ended up in the ring with him, and he, like, after 4 seconds, hit me in the kidneys, and I was like, oh, wow, like that was horrendous. But equally, like with regards to that mindset I was sharing, there was another chap in there. It doesn't matter who it was, and I probably wouldn't even give a crap these days, but I just disliked the guy. I disliked his attitude, his personality, everything. Really detested him, and we ended up in the ring together, and my ego was very much kicking in. I didn't have a doubt in my head that I could kick this guy's ass, but as much as he was like 6 inches shorter than me, he was as wide and heavily muscled, and man, did he not hold back. Like, he obviously had a distaste for me as much as I did, but that gave me my first experience of, oh well, fuck you, and actually engaging in a fight, albeit one with the lack of skill and stuff, but it definitely gave me a taste of, okay, so maybe I need to get a bit angry if I'm going to do this type of thing. But like, you're not a
I think that's
bad
valid.
person.
No,
and
that's
the
the valid
majority
thing.
of
Yeah.
dudes that I know that are actual legit savages are
Yeah.
really nice men. You know, that's.
But they've got that switch. They're able to turn that switch, and I wasn't able to do it unless I was really provoked. You know, if someone's going to try
like Rocky.
if someone's trying
in the
to
corner, he's getting angry.
but I would have to, yeah. I prided myself on out technique and out conditioning someone, but and obviously in the fight you have to have that sort of that badness, obviously, that comes in. You know, even though everyone that fights has that come into them, you know, you have to have that point where you're competing to harm this person, and that is, I don't know. I never got to that point where I felt like I could switch it on and off.
Yeah.
You know, it was either someone provoked me and I was going crazy, or I just couldn't get there every time I fought, you know.
See, I'm also
Spill a bit of beer on myself.
the least. I don't know how true this statement is, because I think I could unravel layers of insecurity that are probably masking it. But I'm a very, like when I was, you know, toying around with you and Rory or whatever, even in jiu-jitsu, grappling, I don't have an innate desire to want to necessarily win. But I'm with all like that with all sports.
Yeah.
I'm not because I'm so in my own head.
Yeah.
I'm competing against myself more than anyone.
You just want to get better.
Yeah.
As opposed to like
but
win
it's interesting
more.
what you were saying there, because I stayed in Glasgow last week for work and reunited with an old friend. My work shifted to Glasgow, and so I put a post on Facebook, do I know anyone that stays in Glasgow? And it was an old firefighter friend whom I knew stayed in Glasgow and just forgotten. Long story short, so I stayed with him, Pete, and he's just won himself a grappling competition, jiu-jitsu. He got like gold.
Is it no gi or gi?
Gi.
Okay.
Gi. But it was interesting because I was speaking to him in the evening, just much the same conversation.
I know, I spilled something on myself. I was trembling with fear.
I was like, he's drooling. We're talking about jiu-jitsu.
I was getting all worked up over
a wee bit sweaty down.
I'll have to take it off.
I was sort of quizzing him, like yourself, with regards to like what's going on in your head when you're in a cage. And obviously he wasn't in a cage, but he said much, I think just similar to what you said. He said he'd been, when training, you know, when he's going to the club, because Pete's a big guy, like, you know, he could power his way out of a lot.
If he wanted to, yeah.
But he's a very intelligent man, and he was describing his thought process up until the competition. He's like, I could have, on many occasions in the club, muscled my way out of a load of situations, but would not let myself do it.
No.
Completely focused on technique time and time and time.
Yeah.
So that when he was in competition, and then won it, he was able to be technique driven because he'd focused so much on it, as if he was a smaller person almost. But now he's can unleash the beast essentially as well,
which is in competition.
Yeah, and that combination got him the gold, because you know now he's like, well, I'm fucking 6 foot 3 and 17 stone. Watch this. Yeah. You know, obviously he's fighting dudes the same size as him, but maybe they'd been. It's
tough when you don't have a lot of technique under your belt when you're first starting. You're just like, I'll use all my natural strengths to sort of get past this person. But when you start to combine your knowledge of technique, then you have that space to say, I'm not going to beast out of this like I could do if it was a competition. I'm just going to use my technique and use my knowledge, and that's more powerful when it's combined with being a beast as well as being stupidly well schooled and then knowing all the technique. Then that's when you can be an unstoppable force.
There's a lot of, like, personally speaking, when I went back to jiu-jitsu last year, I mean, I wasn't oblivious to the fact that my training in traditional jiu-jitsu unfortunately didn't carry on into Brazilian jiu-jitsu when I met boys like yourself. And
is there a huge difference between
Well, I don't want, because I got such admiration for Teddy, my coach, I don't want to. But there were, okay, so basically the way that I look at my training was, okay, so you know an armbar.
Okay.
I know how to be in an armbar. You were taught the transition to get into one.
Right.
Transitions were left out of my coaching.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so it was very syllabus driven.
Right.
But what we were pretty good at, and I haven't really had a chance to do in a long time, was we were very judo based with regards to our throws. We done a lot of throws to earn your belts in the traditional jitsu. You know, a lot of sweeping throws, hip throws, and I was pretty good at the stand-up game, and would be reasonably confident in that. You know, still, that was something I had innately as a child, because I hated things like football and stuff. But I learned at a very young age had a natural ability to understand my own body weight and where someone else's center of gravity was, and all those things. But sorry, the hurdles that I found, and I wanted to talk to you about this last time, was just maybe not for myself, but anyone else joining jiu-jitsu, was like, it's a head fuck when you're like, you know, a man in his mid-30s and you're about to roll with another person who doesn't have to be your age, and he's a purple belt or whatever, and you know how this is going to end. Like, you know that. There's just chances of you know, going into this transaction of a grapple to, you know, are pretty much zero, really. So you're trying to get over all these hurdles, and I found, but this affected my physical ability. You know, it's my own ego, essentially. And my sort of jiu-jitsu experience last year was really based on having to let go of my own ego. And it's weird because it's not like I have, like, you saw me, like, you know, it would just be a case of rolling with Rory choked out. But I would just keep going because I enjoyed it. So it's not like...
And you felt
it's
like
not like I feel
well.
like I should be able to beat the purple belt.
No.
That's ridiculous. It's just trying to let go of that. How do I go into this transaction knowing, you know, how it's going to end and still give it my all? And then, it's like short-circuiting in my brain. I don't know. Like, I just wanted to share that, because if I say that out loud, then I can say, "You're fucking ridiculous, Robert. Just get back into it." You know.
Well, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Sorry if I'm boring you.
No. Sorry. I'm gonna have to go for. Yeah. Where were we in
just
terms
sharing
of
my insecurities with you.
That's what this whole podcast has been about, insecurities.
But yeah, I can, when you're talking, you find that passion. That's where I'm at with my running now, dude. See, my knee, it just healed up.
So just to preface this, for people that don't know, Rob did an ultra marathon, and it's a 55 miler from Glasgow to Edinburgh. Yeah,
Glasgow to Edinburgh. Yeah.
And he hadn't done much in the way of training up until that point in running.
No, done everything wrong. Nearly ended my running. It wasn't very. No, I wouldn't change it. But
would you have done it again the same way?
Oh
if
no,
you had
God,
the chance?
no. Like, no. I mean, that was, I don't know what archetype that addictive. I decided I was going to do something and really enjoyed the process of having a focus.
Yeah.
And that was what the sort of passion came through. The running, yes, the ability I thought that I had, but just the realizing the importance of having a goal.
Yeah.
Really a cliche. But it just so happened that also I really enjoy running, and I've found something that I think I could get better and better at.
Yeah.
Doing an ultra marathon was a really steep, perhaps overly excessive learning curve to do it. But what it taught me was that, this is a bold statement, I want to do a 100-miler. And I think I can do it.
Wow.
And I don't think I can do it. I know my brain can do it.
Yeah.
I know that my brain will... I know in my head I could carry myself 100 miles. What I also know is that my body isn't conditioned for that.
Right.
And nor was my body conditioned for an ultra marathon.
But you did it.
But I did it. But it really buggered me up. Like, yeah, my knee took, 9 weeks to heal.
Have you been seeing physio since then?
Yeah, that was with therapy, but it just got to it was so inflamed, the tendon. And it would sort of get a little bit better, and I'd think it would be better. But the thing that would actually set it off was being idle.
Right.
Specifically, like sitting with my knee behind my ankle behind my knee, and then when you would straighten it.
So if you're sitting on a couch,
yeah, well, I've actually been told you shouldn't ever sit. You should always sit with your feet
in front of you.
In front of your
okay.
knees. Don't have them behind you like that.
Why is that?
Consistent tension on your patella tendon. So
what if you squat all day? What
if you squat all day? You're gonna have an amazing.
What about the
butt.
third world squat?
What?
People who, it's a terrible term, but the third world squat. You know how people doing
squat naked while eating a pot of rice? No.
Yeah, but you know how they sit.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the squat.
Yeah, but that's.
They're doing the same though.
No, not.
Yeah, they are.
But they're. I want to squat now. You're squatting your.
But your knees are going to come forward a wee bit. Track forward. I should use the technical term.
Well, they were third world people with bare feet and better conditioning. I don't know.
Like when anyone tells you not to do something, that's like, so it's a weird thing.
Well, that is, but I was a bit in the grips of injury, so I was.
No, obviously you want to help yourself and you want to get better, but at the same time, it's like when someone says, everyone's got like a bunch of different body types in this world, obviously. So there's not one thing that's going to translate. There'll be generalities that carry across the population, but there's no one thing that kind of.
No.
It's just
don't
funny
bend your knees behind. Right.
Don't sit on your arse.
Stand
the key.
all the time.
Stand all the time.
So where was I with that 100?
You're talking about your training. You want to do a 100-mile.
But so my knee. I was driving home from work. I don't know, 3 weeks ago or something, and I was watching all these people running because it was a glorious sunny day, and I was like, bastards. Why I want to be able to run in, but in the exact same thought process, I was like, wait a minute, my knee hasn't been sore.
Yeah.
Can I run? So I got home, dusted off the running, literally dusted off the running, and I went out running. But
what did
with
you do?
A completely
what was your first
different approach.
Okay.
Completely like.
And that was the first time since you did the half marathon.
Half
marathon?
How dare you?
The double marathon.
The double marathon.
You don't know, you're a running elitist now, are you?
I am, yeah. Fucking am. But completely. Okay, so I'm going to run. I never ever want to get a knee injury again, and I want to get really good at this, and I want to be able to run for as long as possible. So I was completely focused on technique, just a completely technique-driven run. I used my Pulse app, my metronome that was ticking away in my head. I was totally focused on my hand movements, my torso, straight head.
Do you think that's the difference between someone getting injured during a run and not, just continuing to think about your technique while you're doing it?
And so
Because you think it's strange to say that technique. You think running, it's a natural movement for the human body to do. The way I do it is just going to be, the way I do it. But like you're saying, there is a technique to it that makes it more easy, I guess.
Yeah, and it's not just more easy. It's like, oh, your body's like, thanks, like thanks for running properly. Like I mean, I was out.
I always run bent over at the hips.
Bent over at the hips. Yeah. It's easy to do that, slugging over and falling over. But I mean, I was out in Edinburgh yesterday, and a guy ran past me, and I sort of stopped to watch him because I instantly recognised his technique. I could see him going ding 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 because he looked odd.
Right.
That was the thing. That's like he's not running like everyone else.
Right. Okay.
So just really focused on that, and just being and also not allowing my brain to take over, like, because my brain's like, just keep running. Nope, you've been injured. Like, just go out. And I was out for like 45 minutes, and then came back reluctantly because I wanted to keep running and get a good sweat on. But then and waited a couple of days and back out again, and slowly putting the miles into it. But I love it. But the best bit, and this is awesome and something I didn't see, is my brain, having done the ultra, when I start running now, goes straight in to that mode. Like, it's like, okay, this is what we're doing. Right. So just let's go, like, calm. We know this. We're comfortable with this. And it's just like, that's like a wee sort of go-to secret weapon thing. Like that. Well, it is. It's like, but that wasn't there before. And now it's like, no, you run.
How long was it when you ran that the ultra marathon? How long was the time? Yeah.
11 and a half hours.
So how long does anyone do one thing for 11 hours? You're going to get into a mode, and you're going to be able to tap into that easier, like you're saying, than you would be before. And the more you do it, the more it's going to become easier and easier, I guess.
Yeah, it was just such a good feeling, though. Like, it's hard to really, but I think you know what I mean. Like, just my brain and body were like, yep, okay, we know this, and it's even, so when I started pushing the miles again, like into sort of past the 2 hour region, and still, despite everything, that first hour is just awful. Like, it just sucks. It's awful. But like, I know that that will get better, but I love it. Like, I really, really want. So my plan is to do. I need to pound the pavements. Like, I need to get these knees.
Sexual, but yes, okay.
Yes, just some sexual
pounding.
And I want to do the Glasgow to Edinburgh next year, because I didn't run over the finish line this year because I had to. My knee went. Right. I want to do that, and I've also asked my Richard, sports therapist, if he wants to do it with me.
Oh, has he done one yet?
No, he's not. But I know he's leaning towards it, but not ready to commit. And also,
how do you feel about when you see a bunch of people crossing the line at the London Marathon, and they're like, "Oh, this is like the toughest thing I've ever been through," and then you've done an ultra marathon? Is there something in your mind that's like, oh, you kind of smirk or sneer? Or is it like, well, everything's relative?
Well, a couple of things. Because first off, there's no way I could ever run a marathon in 3.5 hours or something. I'm so slow, it's ridiculous. But it's weird because, like, I don't know. It's weird how quickly the goalposts change. Yeah. Like, because 100-miler exists, and because they're becoming so popular now. Like, it really is. Yeah. It's a bit like folk are really liking this challenge, in the 150 milers, and you can do these ones, where the orienteering skills you need are through the roof, and I don't have them. So
you don't have a compass.
It's like, well, I'm not. Yeah, I would like to run a marathon for fun, but already it's like, I don't know, 55 miles doesn't sound that crazy. Now that
do you think that's your base level, your baseline? Do you think that's the one that the least amount of it you can do now in terms of running something official? Would you ever do a marathon or a half marathon now?
Yeah. I don't. Well, perhaps not competitively, but yeah, for training specifically.
Have you never thought about doing the London Marathon?
No. It's never floating that.
Okay.
The marathon it's never really I never floated my boat really, to be honest.
It's just the same thing as running 55 miles, but longer.
Yeah, but longer. I liked, I've done marathon distances before. I've done this, and I enjoyed them. But I mean, that was the reason I wanted to try an ultra. I sort of got to the end at the pace I'd gone at and thought, well, I'm just bored now. I could keep going.
What do you think you have to do to get to running 100 miles? Like, what do you think you're going to have to achieve leading up to that?
I've been looking into this, and I've spoke to a couple of guys that have been pretty solid runners. I've got a friend who's ex-army and can run a flat 26 miles with a burger on his back in army boots in like 3 hours 20.
That is insane.
Yeah, super fit guy.
I want to armbar him.
Yeah, hell of a pace. And I was telling him about training with regards to distances leading up to doing a 55er. And he was saying, he says, I don't see any point in going over 30 miles as a training run at all. Okay. It's all about pounding the pavement. So with regards to doing a 100 miler, I think it's just about that. It's about knowing that you can achieve these distances, but it's more about getting these used to. I mean, if you go on YouTube and you look at ultramarathon training, and there's so many videos out there, it is just a case of an intense amount of dedication. Yeah. Very early start, so you can get a very long run in the morning. Yeah. And trying to get these back-to-back long run-ins. That's where the training really comes in for ultras. So it's kind of where it does a unorthodox flip side. Like instead of the what's it called? When you're not training.
Off season.
Oh yeah. It's the opposite. So go out for a 20, and then the next day do another 20.
What about the woman that beat, like, was it something like 200 miles or something? She says she barely does like 10 milers every day. She doesn't run that much. That's crazy. Yeah. But that shows that everyone's body's different. There's Cameron Haynes? He runs a marathon every day. Yeah. But he needs that for his mentality.
I think there's a couple of factors though with these people. I think that they're probably naturally very healthy technique-based runners. Right. Okay. I mean, that's why they're able to do these things. They're just in that category of perfect technique. Yeah. Whether they've had running coaching in their lives or they're just innately good runners. Yeah. My technique was just off. I was slumping forward. When I think about it now, I don't think I was too far out of a good cadence. Right. I don't think I was overly heel striking. I think my weight was too far forward. Okay. But
do you think that was due to fatigue?
Yeah, and also the mindset of that so the difference between a good technique and a bad technique is that with a good technique, with a midfoot strike, with the perfect cadence, a faster pace uses less energy. Okay. And that's counterintuitive when you are not aware of the technique involved in running, and you've got bad technique and you're tired, and you try and slow down and you become slumped, and actually that burns more energy. Okay. So that's something that was a big learning curve. And that's why I experimented with that ultra. And the times when I felt myself lagging, instead of slowing down to try and get my pace back, I speeded up. Right. And that's like your brain, but actually
it's the way it's supposed to be.
It's just not like just a couple of points of a mile an hour.
Like keep the pace up a wee bit.
I love it though. I mean, I absolutely love that. I don't know what it is. That zen or flow. Yeah. I guess.
Yeah, you're tapping into that.
Yeah, it's just.
What's the farthest you've ran since you did your marathon?
I done. What did I do? I done a 6 miler. I took an hour and 10 minutes to run 6 miles just because I wanted to see where my knee was at. Then I went out for a 10 miler. And the next night, the next run I done was a 15 miler. And then since then, I've just been playing around with 6 milers and 10 milers, but I try and when I'm doing my 10Ks, I've got a baseline I want to get to of 42 minutes. Okay. For a 10K, to use them as my sort of pace-driven ones. Okay. And then I just slow it right down, anything over that. But I'm getting itchy now to do a 20 plus
Right. Okay.
just now.
Yeah.
But
Are you going to just do that by yourself, or are you going to enter anything official?
maybe I should do that. Like I would. But it might be a bit more of.
Well,
Yeah,
the way I've heard about it is it helps to run against people, and if you're just training by yourself and doing 20 milers, it's hard to sort of see someone else and not see someone and up your pace because you know they're ahead of you.
Yeah.
And you're not going to do that by yourself. I heard.
No,
Not you, because you will. I know you will.
I think running in general is a solo pursuit, but
Yeah.
I think it would be good for me as an individual to do more competitive things anyway.
Yeah.
So
No, definitely.
it's maybe not a bad idea. I just love running.
Oh, wait, there's some Forrest Gump meme out there now.
Because you last time, shit happens. What time are we at? I was wanting to talk.
Oh, we got we can go for another sort of 40 minutes.
Can we? Okay.
Well, we can.
Can we do a complete
Yeah.
redirect of the conversation? Did you see the article written by an ex-work colleague of Dr. Jordan Peterson's?
No?
No? Oh, that's unfortunate. So an ex-work colleague of Dr. Peterson's, as in a professor of the Toronto University. And the title was that Dr. Peterson is dangerous. No, why this man is dangerous. And
was it a woman?
No, it was a dude.
Wow.
Now, so it's a really personal, intimate written article. It doesn't sort of start off aggressive. In fact, it starts off the opposite. Sharing experiences of working with Jordan, the obvious genius of the man, his abilities as a clinical psychologist, the fact that when this individual was getting work done in his house, he'd Jordan Peterson's family and had them over to stay for like quite a while, and they shared the top. They give him the whole top floor, and he'd sort of give you a descriptive example of Peterson's personality.
Right.
Like he was a good man, very heartfelt, a strict parent, but a good parent.
Okay.
But he then went on to talk a lot about his point of view with regards to the perception we've been given of Jordan Peterson. So he refused to use gender pronouns. Okay. He had this sort of court case, blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. But this man goes on to say, well, actually, instead of him doing that, he could have done this, this, and this, and it could have been much less mainstream. Yeah. And it could have had the same results. He then goes on to say how Jordan Peterson was pulled up on more than one occasion for claiming his own theories as fact in his lectures, like time and time and time again. So essentially insinuating he was conditioning his students. Okay. And despite being pulled up time and time again and agreeing not to do it, would consistently do it again and again and again. And then his sort of broad claim statement at the end, this isn't what it said word for word, but this is what he was suggesting, was that Jordan Peterson is such...
Not Peter Jordanson, as I like to call him.
Jordan, what does he call him?
This is alter ego is Peter Jordanson.
Peter Jordanson.
And he's goes out and fights trans people.
Right. He might
be a superhero.
Yeah. Well, that was I'll get to that bit because there was the bit in this bit, but he basically is suggesting... Okay, so if you think about what Jordan Peterson's created, and specifically the following of men that he's got, which now seems to be merging into women with all these... like he's doing a world tour. Wow. Are you following it at all?
I've not. I don't know he's doing the world tour. I've been following how he's interacted with people that are questioning him on, because he was recently in the UK and there was a lot of British companies that were trying to interview him after the one that was famous on Channel 4. There was a lot. He went around the UK and did a lot of things, but yeah, like it's fascinating to see where it goes. But I didn't hear about this, that there was someone wrote an essay, I guess. Would you say it was an essay?
So yeah, kind of. But his claim was that what he has created, or what appears to have materialized from him appearing on a podcast and then starting his own podcast and then writing a best-selling book. This guy is insinuating that this was a thought out, manipulative plan to essentially create an army. to sort of tackle postmodernism, or something along those lines. So I suppose it's a tricky conversation.
But what do you think about what was said?
Well, there was one thing about 12 paragraphs in.
There's definitely an essay.
Yeah, this man stated also that he has a trans daughter, and that he was very disappointed, and he thought that Jordan Peterson would be a bit more respectful of it. So, I mean, in the court of law, I think it would probably get chucked out for being emotionally, invested in it or whatever. But I mean, if it was true,
but I assume Jordan also was put up that child when he was out of home as well.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. No, I was curious what you thought about it if you'd heard about it. But I mean, if it was true, it's actually terrifying. But personally,
when you put anyone under the microscope, though, you're going to see a lot of flaws that you don't like. This is a person that's been in the media intensely for the last year and a half. You know, you could probably say maybe a year, and he's got more coverage than a lot of people that have been in this business for years and years and years. So people are going to scrutinize him. They're going to dig up anything about him. I mean, there's things I don't agree with that he says, and there's things that I do wholeheartedly agree with. It's just the dichotomy of being a human being. There's going to be things that I agree with that you say. There's going to be things that I don't agree with. But imagine you had a platform to say that, you know.
Do you think, like, I desperately want this conversation. I've been trying to have it. See, I have a friend called Claire. Okay.
Sounds made up, but okay.
Her really good name, Claire. Claire's currently just finished her master's in social work.
Okay.
Really, really naturally smart, bright lady, very academic. She's the type of person I think she's mastered how to study. Like, you know, if you could tell Claire to study anything, she's going to get a really good result out of it. And Claire and I, since this sort of birth of Jordan Peterson, have been civilly disagreeing consistently on who this man is and what he stands for. That very disagreement is like not unique to me and Claire. That's the divide of the Jordan Peterson things, and it's that divide that fascinates me more than the man.
Okay.
And it's like, I don't know, I see something bigger going on that's almost too much for us to grasp. And I was curious to know what you are, because I've got a couple of theories that are going on in my head as to, like, not just like focus on the man, but look at the reaction that he's causing. Look at literally the millions of people following.
He's made a conversational sort of topic.
I've got at least 6 mates that I know of that have said to me, I've done the self-authoring program, I've bettered my life because of it. I read his...
Is that the 12... Was it the 12-step
That's his
thing?
book. Yeah. But he has a authoring program that he gives to his students in university.
Okay.
It's called self-authoring. Basically, he came up with a program with the...
2 seconds. Continue.
Yeah, so the self-authoring program is something he came up with. Basically, it's pretty simple. They ask you a series of questions that you then write down your own answers to. So imagine your future self if you continue on the path that you're on right now.
Yeah.
Be as honest as you can be. Don't hold back. So if the path that you're on right now, you know, where's that going to serve you? Okay, now imagine a different path that you've chosen, I don't know, to study or something. What could you then create for your life? So you give yourself these alternatives essentially as to which direction that you could go in, but really sort of create and visualize this path that you want to do. The idea being is that if you don't have a goal, well, where are you going to? Where are you going? You know, and the what's come back from this, as they've been using this in universities, is that the students that go in for these self-authoring suite, as it's called, are something like 70% more likely to complete their course.
Right.
And it's not directed at men, but
Okay.
because there's been such a withdrawal of men entering social sciences in the universities in the States and Canada, this has proven to be a really valuable tool
To get people in.
to get people in. Or it's like when people put an actual focus down on paper, a goal. Like, I could achieve this if I do this, 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 and this.
Yeah.
So it's not just, I want to end up here. What do I need to do to get here? And it sounds really straightforward. Well, okay, you need a plan. But that's kind of Jordan Peterson in a nutshell. He tells you sort of straightforward things that apparently you've been neglected in telling through your life. You know? But I don't know. I just thought I brought it up because this whole thing that seems to be happening at the minute and these reactions that he gets off people. Like,
I mean, it's hard to say that he's actually saying anything new. There's a bunch of self-help books out there that have probably said the same things over and over again, but because he's caused such a disturbance in society at this point that he's got a huge platform to put it out and people to take that as gospel. I don't think he's doing anything harmful. The only thing I don't know if I think he sees himself as some sort of societal martyr. You know, he's laying down his career and his life to take this hard stance on something that maybe he wouldn't have taken if it wasn't going to get all this attention. You know, would he have said, no, I'm not going to call you by this pronoun if it was just in his university and he hadn't been on TV or anything like that? You know, would you then take that? But then at the same time, there is a bill that got passed on the back of what was going on in Canada to say that, you know, you could be sort of, it's illegal to not call someone and cause any sort of due
by their gender pronoun,
and that can cause them mental trauma. So you then can be charged for that, and that is something that's sort of, it's a strange one. You know, it can be abused in a lot of ways. But I think he sees himself as the martyr to lay down his career for society to keep free speech and not just lay down to these laws that get made like that, reactionary laws, you know.
I think it's even bigger than that. That's what sort of fascinates me. But that's why I enjoy the conversation. I have a consistent theme that emerges when I watch him being interviewed. And it's the...
Take your pants off. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Prepare myself. Where's the tissues? So he's engaged in a conversation.
Yeah.
And he's talking to an individual, or they're questioning, they're interviewing him. And he says one thing. I hear it, but they hear another thing.
Yeah.
And he keeps getting this reaction consistently. And he must know, as the intellect that he is, that he's going to get that reaction.
Yeah.
And I think, personally, that's where he's at as a stance, as a psychologist, that as opposed to just being the clinical psychologist on an individual basis, he's taking a step back. He's looking at the entire species, and he's trying to prod and instigate these reactions, in a sense, to take the bullets for society in a way that then generates the questions that no one is willing to fucking ask, or no one's willing to talk about, because they're so trapped in their own self-belief or something like that. And
could be, you know, you could be performing some sort of wild psychological experiment on the whole
entire
world,
human species.
I say the world. It's probably only something that's taken place in the Western world. You know,
it's so funny that be someone that we need, though. And I mean, because it's all right to hate someone.
But why do you think we need them? Well, like, where do you think that comes from? I think
it's a pattern that we do. Well, I think I think it seems to have come from, I don't know. I mean, it must be something as simple as this, not the biological evolution of humans, but this modern evolution to be a modern human, and the crises that we face on that, and how, we've emerged from the gods. We're not taking from them anymore. We're manipulating them now and just taking what we want and creating abundance. But because of that, like his suggestion is that we've stepped away from something that was actually very beneficial for us, albeit like these old ancient mythological stories and how they hold some kind of truth deep set in the human psyche.
You mean the Bible?
Yeah. Well, not even the Bible though. Like these, they're slaying the dragon on the hero's journey and all. I mean, these are what have helped me massively in the last.
There's
couple of
dragons
years.
in the Bible. You know that.
I did not know that.
I was joking.
Damn it. I was going to go home and read the Bible. But I don't know. I was curious to see where you were at with this, with regards to, because it's not just him. There seems to be a new emergence of academics on the internet, and and people are tuning in. They want informed. They want this information.
It seems the way he's sort of positioned himself, and the way people react to him on either side, and I use those terms loosely, the either side, I mean left and right, they've sort of both used them to sort of, for their own agenda, and I can only see that as maybe him playing some experiment, like you're saying, like some sort of psychological trick, because he's going to be like, well, I can say this, and both sides are going to say something completely different, And people are going to attribute, people saying he's right wing is fucking stupid. That's one of the biggest things I hate about conversations when it comes to Jordan Peterson, is how he's thrown in with all these people that are right wing, Nazis, just because he doesn't want to call someone by their pronoun, or doesn't feel like he should have to by law. Not that he doesn't want to. It's the mere fact that he doesn't feel that the law should tell him that he has to call someone by some name.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Like, I'm half convinced that something bigger than all of us is going on at the minute in the world. Like this shift of, I don't want to shift of consciousness or shift of desire to be informed, or we're recognizing that the path we're on is not necessarily.
I think it's things that come to a head that bring change in society. That this is how we advance as a civilization, that there's topics that are grinding against each other, and then something like that, like Jordan Peterson's like a linchpin for change.
It's like when we're in a world of like technology and advancements and everything's moving at 1,000 miles an hour, and then this like psychologist from Canada comes up and just reminds us that we're all a hero on our own hero's journey, facing a dragon that we need to slay to reap the rewards under it, and somehow that the oldest story ever told is like sinking into your being and helping you get on with your life. It's like, well, what the we clear something like, what are we doing? Are we desperately trying to re-engage with that innate ancient in us, or what's happening there? There has to be something.
It doesn't mean that the gender politics is any like less though. Like, these are things that do affect our society and have to be addressed. Just because we romanticize this, everyone romanticizes that idea. Myself included. Like, the hero story is obviously something that's innate, but there's also the stuff that we have to deal with on a day-to-day basis, and that is interacting with people and gender politics and sexism, and how we interact with women now is completely different from 10 years ago. It's crazy. Not that it's crazy, but it's something.
How did you interact with women? Did you beat them over the head with a club?
I used my fake leg to I pushed their leg over their head when they beat me up on the bus.
You're doing the yoga martial art defense
Kundalini jiu-jitsu. But it's insane. Like, just 10 years, our collective attitudes towards women have changed. For the better, and there's cases where it's been abused as well. Obviously, that that the relationship between men and women on both sides. But for the longest time, it has been men that have been abusing that relationship.
Yeah, and so blindly, I think, lets them off. But I think that's what's interesting is that there just is some, something that should be obvious, like don't talk about women this way or don't treat a woman this way. So I think depending on your upbringing, it's not obvious.
No,
and you sort of need to be told, don't do this.
It's not obvious to everyone that you don't speak to someone. You what you think of as manners is completely alien to someone else in the world somewhere. It just depends on where you are at that point. You would have thought that just not to beat someone else up is just manners, as opposed to the law. You should. It's a law against the law for me to go and beat you up. But you would just think, well, we should all just know not to do that.
We should,
but we have to put some things in.
The best bit of advice I've had, I think I said this the last time. I probably did. I'm going to say it again because it was so profound, and it was just from watching one of his lectures. Don't give yourself more of a hard time than it takes for you to learn the lesson. Right. Dude, that was my life. Destroyed myself consistently, and no one ever told that to me. Okay. My entire adult life, and the second I heard it, I put it into practice. Right. And it took another minute for it then to be put into practice when I'm giving myself a hard. And then I instantly stopped and was like, "Well, wait a minute. Am I going to do that again?" No. Well, then ease off yourself. Something that simple.
Maybe the revolution we're looking for is within men, not women. You know what I'm saying? Maybe women have sort of revolutionized themselves since the 60s. They've modernized themselves, and I think the lagging part of the equation is men, and I think that's maybe who needs that sort of revolution within themselves. That's who needs to sort of be able to sort of modernize themselves, be able to talk about things, to be able to, like yourself, you're not the traditional male archetype. You've went through what you've went through, and you've talked about it on a huge platform. And how many men would have done that back in the day? That's maybe where we need the sort of a revolution is in men, not women. Not women to take power, but men to take power within themselves. And because we have history of feminism for a long time, but we've not had even though the males have always been in a position of power, we've not had someone come along and say, look, we have to take responsibility for ourselves and not do this, that, and the next thing, and be comfortable to say this, and be comfortable to talk about our feelings, and be comfortable not to just lash out when we're feeling uncomfortable. And I think that's maybe where, just to reiterate, I think that's where there has to be a shift. And I say again, like a revolution in men.
I always find it really interesting to think of people, or to think of the human species as like a single person. So like, if you think of one man who's somehow managed to live from the 1900s to now, and the transition of placement his being born a man had in society, and the things that he would have been allowed to do and expected to do, and then told that he's now not allowed to do, and that sort of evolution or or opposite of, and then that men sort of have fallen into that place of, well, where do I belong in the world now? Like what do I actually? What's my worth? What's my place in a partnership? I'm not entirely sure of the difference between men and women now, and then we sort of fall into this void. And when we're in that void, someone like Peterson, Jordison, or whatever his name, comes along and says, "Well, remember this and remember that, and try
it's funny. I just
make your room and stand up straight."
I had slap you on the back of the head. Yeah. But that's why the army appeals to men, because that gives that foundation of sort of
exactly. Yeah.
I have to do this because I'm being told by. Where males are completely sort of hierarchical. Hierarchical. How do you say it? Hierarchical.
We're both terrible at English.
but yeah, you know what I'm saying. Like we need like a male chimp. Even if we are a male chimp, we need even when you're growing up, we just need that in front of us to sort of be able to follow and gravitate towards and imitate. Like, that's what humans all do. We're all just imitating each other. That's all. Everything that we see on Instagram and fucking YouTube and Facebook, it's all just people imitating people. That's all it is.
Do you know, actually, I had a moment there. I don't know if you've noticed my disappearance from social media.
No, I thought you were started your own cult.
Yeah, well, so I did. And then, so I don't know, I had a bit of an epiphany. It might not be real. I might have misinterpreted it. I decided to train myself in the world of social media marketing.
Okay. It's a very general term.
It is, yes. Well, it was a mixture of that with affiliate marketing and the mix of it. And it was an attempt to earn a little bit of money whilst learning to navigate how to use social media as a marketing tool. Anyway, the method of doing this is essentially by prostituting yourself on social media.
Yeah.
Like, you have to turn yourself into your own brand.
Yeah.
And, like, don't get
But I always sorry to interject, but I always thought you did that without having to speak to answer to someone else. Like, I thought you were always about yourself, and your own person was your own brand.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I sort of conflicted by doing this. So this is something I thought that I wanted to do, but I think sometimes you find out that thing you really thought you wanted turned out to be just like a big whacking mirror of your own reflection in yourself. But it got me thinking a little bit about things, because
the only cults are the sexy cults, and that's it.
Yeah, mine was pretty sexy.
Just you.
just me. Yeah, it's not a bad image. But the more... do you have a Facebook business page?
I have a personal one, and I have my, not a business one, just like a one for my IAMKPE, like a platform page. So
I hadn't had a business page before, but the more that I was learning about it, the word algorithm kept coming up again. But the best that I could understand, it sort of responds more to the usage of it.
Yeah.
So, and like even things like go live videos are beneficial for your business page and the entire...
That's what I was trying to do today, but it wasn't good.
Yeah. And
going live.
And I had no problem with that going into that. I had no problem doing this sort of level of exposure, or at least I didn't think I did.
Yeah.
But I found myself conflicted with how, I don't know, I was disingenuous a little bit to me. It felt forced.
Yeah.
But then it got me thinking on something a little bit deeper, which is why I've taken a huge step back right now. And was along the lines of, obviously when I went to Ecuador, the robcasting happened unintentionally. But during that time over there, I was trying to heal myself and feel better. And I went over with a crisis of identity, essentially. And I found an identity in my robcast. Now, I'm sure confident enough that nonetheless is me and was me at the time. But when I started doing this social media stuff, again, I found myself doing this sort of personality thing, but having to sort of exaggerate a little bit more. But I had this, I don't know, like yuckiness attached to it. Like, it just didn't, it wasn't natural. It wasn't sitting right with me. And it just got me thinking a little bit about who am I away from this world? Yeah. Like, from social media. Yeah, from all of it. And how much of my personality am I shaping around it, and how much is that actually, I don't know, driving me, affecting me, or whatever. And it wasn't like I was feeling down or up or left or right about any of it, but I think it was time for me to ask that question. So decided to do a full 180 and just... That's good though. Like you, I think sometimes maybe you're a victim of your own sort of drive for things, that once you go down something and you're kind of locked onto it, that not even a victim, because you had the mentality to see that it wasn't right for you and then just abandon ship. That most people would have went down that rabbit hole and just made themselves more unhappy and uncomfortable.
and you just went, nah, I'm jumping out here.
Yeah.
Screw
Whilst it's relatively
Yeah.
fresh, but it's really got
well,
me.
the Titanic sinks over there.
It's got me thinking a lot about the direction I want to go in, and
I think you need something. You need to be on social media somehow, and I don't know how you're going to do it and what suits you the best, but you still have to have some sort of interaction on some platform, whether it's podcasting or doing your YouTube videos, and it has to be part of your evolutionary process, not you becoming stagnant within being typecast, like you said with the Robcast. You felt like you were becoming cornered by something that you'd went through. How many years ago?
Yeah, like 5.
Yeah,
yeah, exactly.
But I think because when you get blinkers for something, then you just create a tunnel that you can't expand on. You can only go forward with, and you need to be able to sort of let whatever endeavor you take be as free and able to sort of evolve with you as much as you're evolving with yourself.
Yeah, so just sort of go with this natural
and not
flow,
be like, this is what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
This is what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
Just be like, well, I'm on this and I'm going to see where it goes.
Yeah, an emergence of it. Yeah, that makes more sense. But for now, it was just a case of, whoa.
Yeah.
Okay, thought that would work, and it's not going to work.
Yeah.
So take a little step back.
Hasty retreat, as they say.
Hasty retreat. Yeah. But it was also weird because, like, I was getting, maybe when I think about it, because I was trying to earn a little bit of money through this. I guess that's where the disingenuous thing came. But the people that were attaching themselves to that new project were engaging me on a level of Robcast. Yeah. So I wasn't.
It felt like you were doing the right thing.
But I was actually trying to sell it in the back of it as well, and that was not.
It almost feels it's similar to Herbalife. You're kind of preying on people's sort of. You're in a position where you're trying to make a business, and they're trying to make themselves better, and you're selling them something that you. Not that you're being a terrible person, but you're trying to make a living and get through this world and make some extra money, and you're not completely lying, but you're shaping it in a way that makes it seem like you have answers for people, and they have to come to you, and then you to be able to make a business off the back of that. And that's how capitalism works. This is just the way it is. So you don't have to feel bad about that. But I know what you're saying.
When I have mentioned your podcast to people, or they've asked me about you, and I don't know, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but you give me the impression, and I think that's why you do a good job of it, that you're doing it for the right reasons as opposed to making millions. You genuinely really just enjoyed it, and that I think is the setup for success essentially. And if you can, maybe I'm wrong, maybe you're.
This is something I've thought about a lot recently, because sometimes you get a bit you can sort of look where you are with what you're doing, and sort of your mind starts playing tricks on you, and you start to think, and then get in a rut with your thinking, and then it's hard to shake that. And I've kind of got that way a little bit over the last couple of weeks with the show, because I'm getting people on that I want to enjoy their conversation. Like, that's my first protocol when it comes to doing this podcast is people that I want to share a conversation with, and I want to gain something from interacting from whoever it is that I have on the show. I mean, there's probably been a couple of people that I didn't enjoy having on out of 51 podcasts, but at the same time, for you to be able to bring that, the second thing about it is not success through money, but to be able to share that with people, and as many people as possible. That's my ideal thing. It's not to create a brand or a business for model for me to then go down. It's just, I want to share this with people, and I want people to discuss, and people to maybe pick up on something I said and then be like, well, I don't agree with this that you were speaking to, and just interaction, and have like a little community based around it. And is when it doesn't go in that direction, and you think you're doing all the right things behind the scenes as well, and then it kind of maybe affects you a little bit and knocks your confidence when it comes to your next guest, because you're like, oh, you don't know where this is going, you know. But it's all your mind when it comes to this thing. And just to answer what you're saying, like I do this because I enjoy conversating. You know, this is the way I've been most of my life. You know, I want to pick up things and add to my own life through other people's experiences, and that's how everyone, like I said, everyone's imitating other people, and you do that through taking and subtracting things from your life from other people. But yeah, like I love doing it, but
it's a healthy pursuit.
Yeah.
It's definitely not going to serve you in any negative
no
ways.
I mean, I'm not trying to do it to be like a billionaire, you know. I'm doing it but because of my laser focus, I want to make it better at every sort of point. So, you know, there's things over here that I want to make better, there's things over here, and you think when you start doing them all and you think this will help to make the podcast better, you know, I want to make it better. But when you don't see the results straight away, it's kind of hard initially, you know. You just have to pursue, and then I just have to check myself in my head and be like, look, you know, it's a long game with it. You just want to be able to keep having interesting people on, and it's like, you know, the movie with Kevin Costner, Field of Dreams. It's you know, build it and they will come. And that I'm building my podcast every single time I have a guest on, you know, and I'm building that, and that's just going to create momentum, you know.
No, that's awesome. No, I like it. I think you're doing it. Well, that's what you put off. That's what I'd thought, because I was thinking about it for my own reasons as well. I just repeat myself. I say it every time I'm on here, but you know, I think after this latest attempt at trying something, I'm just coming back to what I've been talking about for the last couple of years. I'd like to try this. I'd like to, because you're really good at steering a conversation, you know, and or reeling it back in, and I'd like to experiment with that too. Like I'd like fantasy. I'd love to sit down with Graham Hancock and speak to him about his like effect. Not even ask him about his work, but you know, share with him how your work has affected my life. You know, and although he gets that a lot, you know,
because there's no. I think the thing that he gets a lot is the people that are interested in his book and his sort of theories and whatnot. But I don't think he gets a lot of people talking about the effect that his conversations have had on people. Joe Rogan maybe gets that more because the platform of his podcast, but someone like Graham Hancock has had a tremendous effect on you, you know, and I love his books, and I think he's brilliant, and he might bring a bit of a paradigm shift in how we perceive prehistory as well, if things come to light with him and Randall Carson. And that's how he's another one that I think he sees himself as a sort of him laying down his you know, going out in his shield to sort of better humanity. But I think the people that do that know they're doing it. There's no one in history that's done that and not knowing that that's what they're doing, I guess. It's not as romantic as that. I think the reality of a hero like that is they understand and know exactly what they're doing. And even though that feels weird, and sort of like you say with what you were doing, you know, you had this sort of weirdness to yourself when you were trying to do something and make a brand of yourself. Any human, even an intelligent being, just knows exactly what they're doing and the repercussions that might come from doing this. And he's another person, but he's doing it for the right reasons. You know, I think it'll come out that him and Randall are completely right about what they're talking about.
I don't have a doubt. I mean, that's why I engage with people like, you know, there's something that I don't think is spoken very often about. Like when I see like people like, you know, Hancock, and I put Peterson into the category as well, is that they're not as articulate and as intelligent. They're what I call feelers. Right. Like there's an element to imagination that comes with being a human being and actually meditating on that feeling, so that when you put these suggestions in place, like ancient civilizations and the fact that some you know, megalithic, you know, catastrophes happened or whatever, that, you know, there's part of you can feel that might just be right. That kind of fits the bill as to where we're at now, and that sort of betterment for the species or whatever. I can relate to that, not on an academic level, but I can relate to them on an individual level with regards to how I think they're processing their thoughts, and it's only coming from a good place, like you're saying there, you know.
There's experiences on Facebook and pure venom that I've seen, and it comes from Facebook pages, and one of them was forbidden archaeology is one of them. Now on the face of it, you think it's going to be one of these, you know, aliens and you know, like ancient aliens and all this type of thing. And
did they visit us before?
I think they just had the unfortunate. They unfortunately got the wrong name, and it's attracted a lot of idiots.
Yeah.
But they're still very militant in their sort of thinking. They just poo-poo Graham Hancock, saying he's like completely off his head.
Although that took a shift when Dundee University released that article, basically saying,
like there was
what was it translated, the Göbekli Tepe, and he's like, yeah, I've fucking been telling you for like 25 years. Thank you.
And did you listen to Joe Rogan with Robert Schoch?
Yeah,
that was a brilliant one,
wasn't it? Yeah,
that was a brilliant one, and they completely poo-poo him on this Facebook page. You know, they're saying they're all quacks and nuts, and I didn't even know. Just in relation to that podcast, there was a lot of things that came to light, especially about Egyptology, how it's not even an official sort of thing. It's just a passion, or it's not an actual science.
I think if anything, these men are telling you not. They're the ones that are saying, you know, question absolutely everything and don't put people on a pedestal. You know, the word scientist doesn't mean you're a flawless human. You still have an ego attached to it.
Yeah.
You know, and
even with Robert Schoch, there was a few things I didn't agree with. His whole his lightning thing just seemed a bit sort of like he based his part of his career on that, and he invested a lot more in it. You know how you said that's how he thought the ice sheets had melted so rapidly, due to sort of copious amounts of lightning that's not just like a singular lightning. It can like fills a whole void. I felt like he was just hedging his bets on that because he studied it for so long. But yeah, he was brilliant. So some of the Sphinx stuff that he was talking about.
The really worthwhile bits that come out of these, though, like I don't think I haven't processed it enough to give this justice, but when I was listening to Robert Schoch and the backlash that he was talking about, how he received it, it got me thinking about Peterson and the backlash that he's receiving, and I think it's those backlashes that we need to pay attention to. Like, I think as an intelligent person, when you hear that type of thing, like, it's not like, don't just gravitate towards the apparent professionals over the amateur. No, look at the reaction. Why are they reacting like that? Why are they reacting so strongly? You know, that to me is the sort of fascinating bit. And that's come more so out of listening to all these podcasts and actually, you know, thinking of things like, well, no, they're just human beings. And, you know, and of course, if you've dedicated your life to something and then someone says, actually, no, that's not how it is. You know, how easy is that going to be to let go of?
I feel the truth about whether it's the Sphinx or the Great Pyramid of Giza or it's ancient sort of advanced civilizations, I think those are all on the level of a paradigm changer. You know, especially how we think of our prehistory. And one of the things I always say is everyone just thinks we're this linear progression from, you know, A to B, and we're the best of everything that's happened, and we're the most advanced, and we're the product of 3 billion years of evolution.
I think,
and to feel like and to know that's not the case, that there's been peaks and troughs throughout history. And we're not the most. We could be. There could have been a different animal that came to sort of that could have evolved in those 3 billion years and been a massive civilization that wasn't even human, and then died out and was, you know, caught up in some sort of catastrophe, because there's 1 billion years is so fucking long. You know that. Well, you know that.
I think is it. I think I was thinking about this the other day because, like, you know, when I'm talking to Claire about her conflicts with regards to Peterson and stuff, it's like I struggle sometimes to sort of put all this into a nutshell, but sometimes, you know, you just need a little bit more information. And I think people, like, I think that what these men are trying to put across. This is my interpretation. So if you think about it, like Peterson is like reading or reinterpreting the Bible. He's reintroducing us to why at one point gods were beneficial. Graham Hancock is having us look at the stars because there might be a meteorite that falls out of it. Robert Schoch is indicating that there might have been some, catastrophic 1,000-year lightning storm that scorched the earth, and the same with Randolph Carlson. But there's a theme there. And, when you think about like who these men are and what it is that they're trying to get out of these stories, I think it's as simple as, listen, if we all start looking at the stars again, if we all start looking up and recognizing how completely vulnerable we are.
I think that's the key word. Is it's the biggest thing that they're going to realize is you're vulnerable.
Yeah.
And that's...
But then what does that do to the species? Like, I like to think that the reason these men have this platform is because they're saying, listen, we're in this direction and we're looking in this direction. We're only looking in this direction. And whilst we're doing this tribalism war is kicking off.
Yeah.
All this crazy's kicking off. It's left, it's right, it's up, it's down. No one can just be
Guess what? It doesn't even exist. All those things are all made up.
If we acknowledge these realities that can fall from the sky, maybe not in our lifetime, but who cares? But let's stop pretending that they don't exist. And maybe that might bring the entire species together. I think that's what. Do you know what I feel is happening? The emergence of God is like. That's it. Like, that's the reason to sort of give that level of worship or technology to it, and then we can maybe just harness the innate love, man, of the human species.
I was thinking about this. I think I can't remember who was talking about it, but just in the purpose of looking up. And I was driving to work. And it was a wide open space, and it was a road that didn't have many tree coverage. And I remember looking up, and I remember thinking, my plane of sight, the way I look every single day from my day-to-day life is a minute percentage of what's actually above me.
Blows your mind.
And I love looking at the stars. I know exactly what's going on in terms of meteorites flying through the fucking sky, almost taking out the earth, but still, my even though you think of yourself as like a 3D being, you have like a sort of linear view of the world, like literally and figuratively. But every day you're just looking forward, and that's it. It's all you see. You don't even have the time to look up and think, I'm in the middle of a fucking universe, And that's the scale of it is so fucking. Makes you feel vulnerable, and it makes you feel everything's bullshit.
I don't know much about Nietzsche. All I know of him is what Dr. Peterson talks about, but his famous reference was God is dead, and Peterson has tried to break that down. What did he mean by that? And I think that's what he meant. There was a time when we did worship the stars and the gods, and we were trying to understand the world. And all right, now we're in a place where we understand it better from a scientific point of view, and because of that, we just delete God from the equation. But that doesn't mean that we can have this new understanding of what might be fact and fiction. But that doesn't mean that we have to ignore something that served the species for so long, but we can just maybe move forward with it in a sort of, I don't know, a different approach or understanding, or a slightly more respect. Like, I lie in bed sometimes, Darren, and I do this. I look at my hand and it's moving up and
he's
down.
making a wanking motion.
And I'm like, okay, so I'm taking it for granted. I'm a human being, that I'm doing that. My brain's doing that. I'm not entirely convinced. I kind of doubt everything. And I'm like, does anyone else want to talk about this weird shit that we're doing on this planet? Hurtling through the universe. And I don't know. I think that's maybe what these men are touching on, and why they sort of hit these cells in our body or whatever. And
when you put it into simple terms, where we exist, everyone that we see, hopefully we're not in some simulation that's been put forward, but we exist. The fact that life exists on one planet that we know of in a fucking infinite universe, even an infinite universe exists, is fucking, it's just insane. Like, there's a zero and a one, an on and an off, or a yes and a no to the universe. We could not be existing at this moment in time, but we are. Like, why now? And the very fact that we're alive and there's life in us, however you want to take that, is fucking could be construed as a miracle. You know, I don't believe in miracles or whatever, but the very fact of life is a miracle. You know, regardless of how you look at it, if it's an abundant through the whole of the universe, it's still an on position on the switch and a possible on or off. And that means it's fucking miraculous that life is here, you know.
I would say so,
It could have not been here. We couldn't be but it could have that we weren't in a universe, but it could have been that we're, you know, a pimple on some space alien's asshole, you know.
Absolutely.
All aliens are space aliens, but you know what I'm saying.
I understand the arguments that get raised with these people that we've been talking about, but from a personal point of view, they've just all served me in nothing but a positive light, and I'm not very unique, really. So,
well, we all are. Collectively, we're unique.
Yes, but I'm definitely not alone in the experiences that I've had, and I don't know. I just don't. I feel like standing up for these men.
Okay.
And women.
Yes, persons of interest.
Persons,
yeah. So that's basically, I think that's time, you know.
Okay. Time. Did we solve any problems?
I think maybe made someone think about something somewhere.
How to pronounce words properly.
How not to speak English.
Well, thanks for having me on.
It's been great. You know, like I've been trying to have you on, and I wanted to have you on with Laura at some point. So maybe we can organise that, because she's really wanting to meet you and have a chat with you, because she's been interested in what you've had to say.
Cool.
And on our question and answer podcast, you I don't know if you've listened to it, but you put forward the question, who was the favourite podcast guest, and obviously it's not you, but no, I'm joking. It was you. No, like, because you know you come here and we have these conversations that are so easy, you know. I have easy conversations with a bunch of people that come on, but not the same sort of, I don't know, like the fluidity that we talk about things as well. And I always enjoy conversating with you.
Well, thanks, man. I do as well, but you're really good at it. You know, and you keep me in track as well, you know, because I can just go off on a tangent. Do you know what? It would be interesting, though. I'd be really fascinated, you know, maybe, well, they do one with Laura, but, you know, maybe sort of sync up on something. Like, for example, I should have sent you that article on Jordan Peterson before, instead of, like, just hoping that you'd read it.
So we'll have, like, a conversation about a topic. Yeah,
or something. And we
all
it doesn't have to
read
it
in our relative individually, and then come together. Yeah, no, that's cool.
That would be interesting. Yeah, because you know, some of the topics are quite difficult to get a back and forth on. You know.
Yeah. No, it's good to do something different with it as well. Because usually when Laura's on, I take a Vice article. You know, Vice, and some of them are awful. Yeah. And I usually take one, and I'll read it, and she'll read it before we come on the podcast, and then we'll sort of discuss. It's just a conversation starter. It's not to be like, oh, Vice is shit. Yeah. It's just to like read a shit article and be like, this is why this is terrible and why we shouldn't have these sort of conversations.
Can I do a recommendation for you before I go?
Okay.
Got introduced to it yesterday. Would never ever have watched it. Spanish mini-series on Amazon.
Is it the novella?
Wild Tales.
I think Joey Diaz talked about this.
Dude.
Isn't it like 24 episodes per season?
Watch it. One story just drifts to the next. Like sometimes you're just like, did it finish? Are we on a new one? But there's like 2 hours and maybe 6 stories in each one. But god damn.
Really?
God damn.
Really?
Yeah, man, watch it.
Is it like a Spanish novella thing?
It's like, it's kind of got a Black Mirror energy to it, minus the technology. It's basically just really clever mini films of like scenarios that could potentially happen to a human.
Like, is it the same actors every episode but different stories?
I'll give you a quick example without a spoiler alert. Guy experiences road rage, gives the finger to a dude. 10 miles down the road he has a puncture, tries to change his wheel, but he's like an office suit jock, pretty not capable with a tool. The guy that he gave the finger to catches up with him, and the two have a fight. But the way that the acting is done, it's like really fucking intense as hell. The guy has to lock himself in the car. This guy's like beating the car down, takes a shit on the guy's windscreen.
What the fuck?
But then the guy in the car, because the guy's gone to such a level, he pisses and shits on the guy's car. The guy is terrified, but as he's driving away, he's like, fuck it. But it's real human psychology.
Right,
like
okay.
when you decide to take it to the next level, he decides to try and run the guy over,
Wow.
but he misses. So then what happens? And then something else.
Right.
Like you've gone too far, and you're
Yeah.
like, holy shit. But
And you're dealing with your
own
your
facing
your
like-
actions
yeah,
like
yeah.
immediately as
Yeah.
opposed to sort of just
and it becomes life and death.
Yeah.
Literally. Dude, it's awesome.
what Wild Tales.
Wild Tales at Amazon.
Okay.
Yeah.
I
And
wanted to bring this up on the podcast because I seen this last night on Reddit. Actually, I don't know if you frequent Reddit at all.
no, I don't. But not for
brilliant.
any reason other than no.
It was a movie poster for a legit movie that's coming out.
Mhm.
Let me just let me just giggle.
Shark versus
Uh,
giant squid.
Eagle versus penis.
Yeah.
Um,
How does that one work out?
it's
Is it a
an
tat?
internal it's an internal monologue.
Right.
It's called The Man Who Killed Hitler and Then Bigfoot.
Oh, dude. How can that not be good?
A legendary American war veteran is recruited to hunt a mythical creature.
Nice.
And
Is
it's
it Tim Kennedy?
Sam
No.
Elliott. You know the Tash guy from the dude. What's the dude?
The dude. Oh, what?
The Big Lebowski.
Big Lebowski.
You know the cowboy that sits at the bar when he's drinking.
Yeah.
That's Sam.
Face,
That's Sam Elliott.
Right,
He's the
okay.
guy that's like obviously
yeah.
killed.
That could be pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's such a straight up title,
Yeah.
and it's so farcical that my thinking is that it's going to be something pretty trippy, because the title's so far fetched that they're
Yeah.
going to make it like very very trippy.
I watched the movie the other day, and I got to be honest, I wasn't sure what I was thinking, but got Rampage.
Rampage is brilliant.
It's amazing.
Why didn't
I don't know. Like
the second one is brilliant as
I
well?
didn't. What? I thought this was. Wait a minute. Are we on the same movie here?
Rampage, the one where he's in the building, the kung fu one.
No.
Oh.
I'm talking about Rock and the giant monkey and a giant wolf and a giant crocodile.
Oh, okay. No, the one with the rock.
If you
Yeah.
could get inside my head and make a movie, dude, it was a giant fucking monkey and a wolf. It was awesome. I loved it.
The one I'm talking about, is it Rampage? I'm not sure.
Dig in.
But it takes place in a building. I think it's not Michael Jai White. It's the guy that was in Ong Bak. Yeah.
I went on back. I've never seen anything like that when that first
Fucking,
came out. Jesus
it was so
Christ. It was
amazing.
like all my mates round.
It's like an underground Thai movie. You're just
Yeah.
like, what the fuck?
Yeah, the dude was pretty legit. Like,
Oh,
some
yeah.
of that stuff he was doing was insane.
Yeah,
like,
he was
his
crazy.
Own, he was. He was quite something.
Okay,
Right.
on that note,
Yep.
we're gonna end. I usually end it on.
Don't ask me something intelligent.
Oh,
This is where I always.
what do you do at night? No, it's been great to have you on, man, and definitely have you back on at some point. And do you want to do a shout out for anything?
Not really, to be honest. I'm not been up to much at all really recently. I'm not any plans or much. Thanks for listening.
Okay. On that note, peace.
Cheerio.